Chapter 671. Yes. I've never loved before, so I don't know what it's like. So I've never been able to get past the 7 emotions. Mei Shuiyan's face turned red, but she spoke it out calmly. At that time, I had no choice but to break out of seclusion, and went straight to the hermitage to demand an explanation. We fought a great battle in the hermitage, and I fought with the lord of the hermitage, Missouri Wudao, for an entire day and night. Although we were evenly matched, the other party had the advantage in numbers, and it was our home ground, so I had no choice but to retreat. But on the way back, I was besieged by the 10 great supremes. At that time, I was exhausted from the battle, and my Xian cultivation was less than 80% of my peak. In addition, I was exhausted from the long battle, and I wasn't willing to be ruthless. So they finally succeeded, and I've been heavily injured to this day. That heavy injury almost caused me to be doomed eternally. Although I've been recuperating for many years, my injuries did not improve, and I could only barely suppress them. Until today, although I've recovered because of you, my strength has only reached the peak of the 2nd level, and it's still difficult for me to break through. After returning to Tianfa, I thought of you day and night. Mei Shuiyan's face turned red, but she still continued speaking bravely. Because she knew that these were all experiences of breaking through. If she didn't explain it clearly, when the time comes, everyone here would inevitably go astray when they try to break through. I thought of you day and night, tossing and turning, unable to sleep, and finally understood that bone-deep feeling of yearning. Only then did I know what love is. That night, at that moment, I suddenly broke through the barrier of emotions, and stepped into the 3rd level of the Venerable Realm. Mei Shuiyan said it all in one go. Everyone looked at each other, feeling that this matter was very mysterious. For such a profound breakthrough to require such a unique opportunity, nothing could be more mysterious than this. Then, what exactly is your current comprehension of love? Jun Mo Xie's eyes turned as he asked with a smile. Mei Shuiyan smiled but didn't answer. She naturally wouldn't ask such a question in public. However, there was a gentleness on her face. When she looked at Jun Moxie, there was a sense of longing and affection in her eyes. The tenderness in her eyes seemed to entangle Jun Moxie's heart. Although Mei Shuiyan didn't say it explicitly, Jun Moxie instantly understood. Mei Shuiyan's love was the kind of love that disregarded everything. I can change for you, I can ignore everything for you, I don't care about anything. I only want you. The only love. Actually, everyone could imagine how passionate and sincere the love that could support her to break through the barrier of the 2nd level to the 3rd level of the Venerable Realm must be. Jun Mo Xie felt an inexplicable warmth in his heart. It was as if the ice in his heart had suddenly melted. He quietly stretched out his hand and held Mei Shuiyan's jade-like hand tightly. A rare gentleness flashed across Mei Shuiyan's face. She allowed her hand to be held by Jun Moxie, feeling the warmth of his palm. She smiled gently and said, "One more step, and the tribulation of the 3rd level to the 4th level of the Venerable Realm will be related to the power of heaven and earth." Jun Moxie's body trembled as he suddenly thought of something. His eyes lit up as he asked, "Related to the power of heaven and earth? The power of thunder and lightning?" "That's right." Mei Shuiyan said solemnly, "From this level onward, one can be considered to have stepped into the world of the most powerful cultivators. But if one can't withstand it, then one's body will turn to dust, and one's soul will perish. And from this level onward, every breakthrough will be accompanied by a tribulation of thunder and lightning. Furthermore, the higher one's achievements and the stronger one's strength is, the more violent the lightning tribulation would be. I remember when a Saint King broke through, I heard that the lightning tribulation lasted for an entire day. More than half of the Venerable and Saint Beast Kings who were protecting the Saint King died before they barely managed to hold on. As for the Saint King, he only had a single breath left. Saint level? Jun Moxie sharply picked out this word. Yes, the Saint level. Above the Venerable is the Saint level. It's also divided into 4 levels. It's just that it's still difficult for me to reach that level. In fact, I don't even dare to think about it. But it's said that every level of the saint level is 100 times harder than the venerable realm. Mei Shuiyan sighed and said with some sadness, the three holy lands definitely have saint-level experts. Those people are all legendary figures who have participated in the previous war for seizing the heavens. Some of them have even witnessed the war for seizing the heavens twice. And the venerables and saints of our Tian Fa forest are trapped by the misty illusory manners fog, guarding the 9 nether secret realm. If not for that, even if the 3 holy lands have 10,000 guts, how would they dare to make a move on me? So you're saying that the saint level is actually not the highest level? Jun Moxie pondered and said slowly. Yes. Our previous Saint King successfully broke through the 4th level of the saint level and reached a new height, an unprecedented height. Mei Shuiyan revealed a look of respect and said, and as far as I know, there's no one in the world with a higher cultivation than him. Maybe the Misty Mansion and the 9 Nether Mystery Realm have such people, but they still don't appear in this world. That is to say, the Saint King is also not the highest level. Jun Moxie's voice was very firm. He said in a calm voice, above the Saint King, there might be many higher levels. I'm sure of this. But, to us, it's something very, very far away. Everyone looked at each other in shock. Only Mei Shuiyan nodded and said in agreement, I didn't expect you to say this. It's said that after the Saint King broke through, he left behind a sentence. It's similar to what you just said. What sentence? Everyone asked hurriedly. I didn't expect that we'll finally start today. That's what the Saint King said back then. Mei Shuiyan slowly said this sentence, but after everyone heard it, they fell into a state of speechlessness at the same time. The Saint King level was just the beginning. What kind of nonsense was that? He had just started. Then, what were the people sitting here now? Hee, the profound meaning of heaven and earth is endless. Why must you be so stubborn? Do you know how far that is from us? Amidst the silence, Jun Moxie suddenly laughed. He stretched out his hand and pointed at the brightest star in the sky. How far? It must be very far. Who can say for sure what's in the sky? Everyone rolled their eyes at him, thinking that Jun Dashao was trying to lighten the mood for everyone. Yes, it's really very far. I can guarantee that even the fastest flying Shen beast, who has maintained the fastest speed since birth without stopping for even a moment, may not be able to fly there even after 10,000 years. Jun Moxie smiled slightly and said in an earth-shattering tone, but, I can also guarantee that someone has been to that place before. Someone has definitely been there, although the time is hard to determine. Everyone was shocked to the core. This time, even Mei Shuiyan revealed a look of disbelief. Don't be so shocked. That person might not be from the Xian continent. Or it might be someone from some place that you don't know or have never heard of. Jun Moxie sighed and said, maybe you don't believe some of my words. But there are indeed people like that. They can lift the entire Xian continent with one hand. With a flick of their fingers, they can make the Xian continent disappear. These are not empty words. Regarding Jun Moxie's words, everyone thought that he was having a fever and was talking nonsense. Jun Moxie only smiled and did not try to explain further. After a while, he asked again, in this world, there are so many strong people. Then, why did supreme martial artists become the peak experts of this world? This is the question I want to know the most. Firstly, it's because of the restrictions of the war for seizing the heavens. The 3 holy lands are constantly selecting experts to enter the war for seizing the heavens. Secondly, after reaching the superior supreme level, there isn't much interest in the secular world. Third, after entering the 3 holy lands, like you guys. Mei Shuiyan looked at Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyan. Every one of you is unparalleled in this world, arrogant and domineering. But if you suddenly come to a place and realize that everyone's cultivation is higher than yours, and some experts can even fight 1,000 of you alone, what would you think? What would you do? Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyan looked at each other and said without hesitation, of course we would focus on cultivation. What's with always being stepped on by others? The moment this sentence left their mouths, both of them were enlightened. So that's how it is. As long as one had achieved a certain level of success, no one would be willing to be stepped on by others forever. This was especially true for experts like them who had once dominated the world. Even if they knew that those who were stepping on their heads were the so-called legends, and miracles of the past, they would not be truly willing. Therefore, when they saw such a situation, once they felt how insignificant they were and how shallow their strength was, it was understandable that they would train harder in order to climb to the peak again. Once they fell into such a state of mind, how could they have the leisure to wander the martial world? They would be able to find countless opponents wherever they trained, and there was no need to worry about not having opponents. In fact, even if they didn't want to find someone, they would still want to find them. So the experts on the continent were basically extinct because of this. In the mundane world, only the supreme martial artist level was enough to rule the world. To put it bluntly, it was like the saying, when there's no tiger in the mountain, the monkey becomes the king. Of course, there's also the agreement of the three holy lands. Back then, the three great saints who had founded the three holy lands were all upright people with lofty ideals who had a heart for the world. They once said that those above the knowledge martial artist level were already beyond the boundaries of the mundane world, and were naturally prohibited from participating in worldly disputes. Because once one reached the knowledge martial artist level, one person could basically deal with thousands of ordinary soldiers. Even if it was 1,000,000 soldiers, taking the head of a general would be as easy as flipping one's hand. The killing power they possessed was relatively terrifying, and if they acted recklessly, it was very likely that they would cause a catastrophe. In fact, those above the knowledge martial artist level were also human. If they were provoked, it was not impossible for them to do something as tragic as massacring the world. There were many precedents in history, so the three holy lands had the obligation to regulate the world. In recent years, although the three holy lands have become too competitive for power, fortunately, this principle has not changed. Chapter 672. And this principle is the Supreme Treaty of Alliance. Once an expert above the spiritual supremacy level joins the battle, everyone can gang up on him. With these checks and balances, the world could be safe and sound. This is also one of the reasons why the experts do not show themselves in the world. Because even if they are strong, they can't guarantee that they won't be angered. If they get themselves killed because of this, it's not worth it. Mei Shuiyan sighed and said, "The three holy lands in the past were the real holy lands. They were independent and self-reliant, seeking blessings for the people. However, they themselves were extremely unknown and focused on resisting the foreign races. Even when the people of the Holy Lands came out, they were all humble and courteous, and they had a harmonious relationship with each other. However, the three Holy Lands of today are not worthy of the word holy. They only know how to fight for fame and power, and they even plan to dominate the world." She let out a deep sigh. The war for seizing the heavens is drawing near, but they are still planning to annihilate their former ally, Tianfa Forest, as their #1 priority. If the 9 Nether Secret Realm explodes now, then it will be the end of the world, and the end of the world will be in an instant. Then, I wonder who the extremely powerful person you mentioned is, the one who came up with the idea of using the 9th level Xian Qi to test one's talent? This person is not simple. Jun Moxie furrowed his brows and asked. When Mei Shuiyan talked about this person, she was a little evasive. She used the spring and autumn period style to gloss over it. But how sharp was Jun Moxie's insight? How could he let go of such an important person? The 9 levels of Xian Qi in the Xian continent had been passed down for thousands of years, and this pioneering work was started by this person. So, what kind of earth-shattering talent was this legendary person? Mei Shuiyan had a strange expression on her face. She hesitated for a while and said, "Speaking of which, the whole thing that happened in the last 10,000 years is really a farce or a big joke. In fact, the Xian Qi cultivation methods today were all passed down by that person. And this person was the ancestor of Xian Qi in the entire Xian continent. Whether it's the 3 Holy Lands or the Tianfa Forest, all the cultivation methods are derived from this person's cultivation method. It can also be said that this person's cultivation method is the origin of Xian Qi cultivation methods in the entire Xian continent. Mei Xuan laughed bitterly and suddenly stopped. Her face revealed an expression of not knowing what to say. Who is this person? Jun Moxie's eyes flashed as he asked in a deep voice. 9 Nether First Young Master. Mei Xuan said with difficulty. 9 Nether First Young Master. Judging from his name, this person should be from the 9 secluded secret land, right? Jun Moxie was also shocked. Never in their wildest dreams would they have imagined that the place that the Misty Mansion and Tian Fa Forest were defending was actually the place where the Xian Qi progenitor of the Xian continent resided. Yes. But on the other hand, the 9 secluded secret land was named after the 9 Nether First Young Master, not because the 9 Nether First Young Master originated from the 9 secluded secret land. As for the leader of the 9 secluded secret land, ever since the first 9 Nether First Young Master appeared in the world with this name, every generation has addressed themselves as 9 Nether XX Young Master. Until now, it should be the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. Mei Xuan's eyes were filled with fear. What? Ever since the Xian Qi cultivation method was created, the Xian continent's history should be at least 10,000 years old, right? I believe that Xian Qi cultivation method existed even before the war for seizing the heavens. But the 9 secluded secret land, which should be as old as Xian Qi cultivation method, has only been passed down for 14 generations. How is this possible? Jun Moxie raised this question immediately and almost stood up. Not only him, Solitary Eagle and the rest were also shocked when they thought of this question. Not only that, the history of Xian Qi and the 9 secluded secret land is more than 10,000 years old. It's just that the inheritance of the 9 Nether bloodline is a little strange, and it can't be said that no one is qualified to comment on it. Mei Xuan said slowly, because the power of the 9 Nether bloodline is beyond anyone's imagination. Actually, a long time ago, Xian Qi was not the only combat skill in this continent. It's just that year, the 9 Nether First Young Master was like a comet, appearing out of nowhere. With unimaginable power, he conquered the entire continent in a very short period of time, becoming the only person in the history of the Xian continent to conquer the entire continent with his own power. After that, he forcefully abolished all the battle techniques and inheritances on the continent. He burned all the cultivation techniques and ancient books that were collected and passed down by countless factions and countries. He gathered hundreds of thousands of cultivators and used his supreme divine ability to make all those cultivators lose their battle memories in less than 10 years. From then on, other than Xian Qi, there were no other skills that could be cultivated in the entire continent. Mei Xuan said in a tone that no one could tell what she was feeling. As soon as this was said, everyone was shocked to an indescribable level. That's too awesome. That's too awesome. Jun Moxie's eyes shone brightly as he sucked in a breath of cold air. This was the first time that Jun Dashao was so shocked and looked up to someone like this. Facing such a strong person, one could only look up to him, only look up to him. And look up to him until his neck hurt. Ever since Jun Moxie crossed over to this world, he had never admired anyone. Even the powerful Mei Xuan was no exception. But this time, just from Mei Xuan's description of the past, Jun Dashao was filled with admiration for this 9 Nether First Young Master. He couldn't help but admire him. He was the strongest of the strongest, the strongest of the strongest. He was too ferocious, so ferocious that no one could imagine it. He had conquered the entire continent with his own strength, destroyed all of the cultivation techniques, and even erased all of his memories. From then on, the entire continent would only have his skill imprint. Such a crazy thing, even a crazy person like Jun Moxie had never dared to think of it. It was really like a little cow taking a plane, flying into the sky. Then, in order to choose his successor, he specially created 9 levels of Xian Qi before Silver Xian to test. In the end, he chose 4 youths with different temperaments to be his successors. 3 of them were actually the first generation of the 3 Holy Lands, the true founders of the 3 Holy Lands. Mei Xuan smiled bitterly. Then, after an unknown amount of time, the mysterious Nine Nether First Young Master, who had the abilities of a deity, mysteriously disappeared from this world. Just like his mysterious appearance, there were no signs. Following the disappearance of the first young master, the continent gradually calmed down. Perhaps it was destined that the Xian continent would not be peaceful for long. About 100 years later, the first war for seizing the heavens broke out. So that's how it is. I was still wondering why the first young master would allow the strange races to wreak havoc in the Xian continent. Right, didn't the first young master have 4 disciples? What's the background of his last disciple? He shouldn't be any weaker than the lords of the 3 holy lands. 4 disciples, and only 3 of them were the founders of the 3 holy lands. This fact was enough to shock everyone to the point that they could not think straight. It was all thanks to Jun Dashao, who had lived 2 lives, that he still had the strength to ask even in this state of extreme shock. Not only is he not weak, he's even stronger. Because the 4th disciple of the first young master is the founder of the Misty Mansion. Mei Xuan said blankly. Everyone no longer knew what shock was. Today's shock had come too frequently, and they were already completely numb to it. In the first 3 war for seizing the heavens, the 4 disciples gathered all the heroes of the world to join forces with Tian Fa's Beast King. With their tyrannical strength, they dealt a heavy blow to the strange race's army. But after the 3rd war for seizing the heavens, the strength of the ancestors of the 3 holy lands increased greatly. It could be said that they were already standing at the peak of the Xian continent. However, their descendants had a huge conflict with the descendants of the 4th disciple. As time passed, the 2 sides finally broke off and went their separate ways. Then, a series of battles began. However, the descendants of the 4th disciple were still weak and were at an absolute disadvantage. In the end, they were besieged by the 3 holy lands' overwhelming advantage and were on the brink of destruction. Perhaps the heavens would never cease, but at that critical moment, the descendants of the 4th disciple unexpectedly discovered the entrance to the Misty Mansion. The Misty Illusory Manor was a strange place. Entering that strange place was equivalent to disappearing from this world. However, that place would appear every once in a while to recruit disciples and replenish new blood. There was no distinction between the genders of the disciples, and the most important thing was luck. It was said that there was a whole new world inside the Misty Illusory Manor, but as for the details, no one from the outside knew. But when they reappeared in the world, their strength was already much stronger. Even the martial artists of the 3 holy lands could not hope to catch up to them. If it wasn't for the war for seizing the heavens, I'm afraid the 3 holy lands would have been annihilated that time. After another war for seizing the heavens, the 4 families were about to settle old scores. But at this time, another person came out from the 9 Nether secret realm. He called himself the 9 Nether Second Young Master. Mei Xuan laughed bitterly and said, the appearance of this person temporarily stopped the disputes between the 4 families, but it also caused great trouble. The ambition of this 9 Nether Second Young Master was actually not inferior to the 9 Nether First Young Master. The moment he appeared in the continent, he announced that his goal was to conquer the whole continent. But at that time, whether it was the 3 holy lands or the Misty Immortal Mansion, they had already formed their own systems and confirmed their unshakable leadership positions. Plus, although this 9 Nether Second Young Master was strong, it was not to the extent that he was irresistible. He could not even be mentioned in the same breath as the 9 Nether First Young Master. Plus, he was arrogant and did not even have the slightest scruples. So he was destined to be a tragedy. Besides, the ancestors of the 3 holy lands and the Misty Immortal Mansion were the true descendants of the 9 Nether First Young Master. No one was willing to submit to the other, but no matter what, they could not let an outsider conquer the continent. Chapter 673. So, the 9 Nether Second Young Master finally caused the 3 holy lands, Misty Mansion, and Tian Fa Forest to resist him. Besieged by so many people, the powerful 9 Nether Second Young Master chose to fearlessly face the group alone, intending to win with strength. Unfortunately, human strength is limited, and when he lost, he found an opportunity to escape. Using the method of guerrilla warfare, he continued to harass the world. After more than 20 years, everyone finally managed to get rid of this 9 second young master, but the entire world also suffered greatly because of this. But basically, every few hundred years, the longest span is about 2,000 years, a person like this will appear in the 9 mystery realm. Every generation has the same bad temper, conquering the continent is their goal. And every time the 9 mystery realm appeared, if it wasn't for the misty mansion, no one would be able to fight them. So, the disciples of these two mysterious places became destined enemies. And so, after more than 10,000 years, there were 13 people like this. Including the 9 first young master, there were 14 people. A total of 14 madmen. Jun Mo Xia gave his conclusion. 13 powerful madmen and a winner so powerful that no one could defy them. Actually, the 9 mystery realm first young master was also a madman, but he succeeded. And history is always written by the victors. So, he was the ancestor, and the other 13 people became madmen. Mei Xuan sighed helplessly. But the strangest thing is that the 9 mystery realm's appearance is very erratic. The most recent appearance was from the Tian Fa forest. This caused trouble to the Tian Fa forest. Misty Mansion gathered their manpower and successfully defeated the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters. The 9 Serenities and 14 Masters escaped with serious injuries and returned to the 9 mystery realm. He was the only survivor among all the 9 young masters. Misty Mansion also discovered the location of the 9 mystery realm for the first time, so they sealed the exit of the 9 mystery realm. That was 400 years ago, and dozens of experts from Misty Mansion used their strength to cast the mist of Misty Mansion, completely covering the exit of the 9 mystery realm. But, just in case, we naturally need a super expert to watch over it. Tian Fa Forest is the host, so naturally, we will not pass on this responsibility. After a round of discussion, the Saint King agreed. But, who would have thought that the misty illusory manor's bewildering mist could only be entered but not exited? Although the 9 secret realm was sealed, the most elite forces of Tian Fa Forest had also disappeared. Mei Xuan smiled sadly. So, the Tian Fa Forest gradually declined until today. Moreover, in the last 100 years, the sound of the sky collapsing and the earth collapsing could be heard from the mist of the Misty Mansion in the Tian Fa Forest. It should be the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters attacking the seal. Maybe, after a period of time, the 9 Serenities and 14 Masters will reappear in this world. Such a powerful madman has been silent for so many years. Now that he has made a comeback, is there anyone in this world that can compete with him? When Mei Xuan spoke, everyone held their breath and remained silent. Such a past was really too shocking. If Mei Xuan hadn't said it today, no one would have known that this continent had gone through so many changes. But, these 9 young masters charged out, slashing and killing with such great momentum, but why are there no legends of them in the continent? Jun Moxie raised the question that everyone wanted to know the most. There are two main reasons why their legends are not known. First, although these 9 young masters were ambitious, they were all arrogant. Starting from the 9 first young master, none of them had any record of harming civilians. Moreover, all the battles started from the 3 Holy Lands, and then the Misty Mansion intervened. They were all carried out in uninhabited places. Even if the 9 young masters were defeated and escaped, they would choose to hide in the deep mountains and forests. It's really hard for this to be spread to the world. Mei Xuan said seriously, you have to know that if these experts fought in densely populated places, I believe that even a big city like Tianxiang City would be turned into ruins after the battle. There wouldn't be a single tile left intact. A battle of this level is something that we can't even imagine. Mei Xuan laughed bitterly. Moreover, if such a thing were to be spread to the world, the impact would be unimaginable. Even a battle between superior supreme martial artists would be carried out in densely populated places. Not to mention this kind of pinnacle battle. For example, when the 3 Holy Lands surrounded me, didn't they also choose to carry out their attacks in the mountains? Not to mention the fact that the 9 serenities and 14 masters are so powerful. Also, as you said earlier, history books are always written by the victors. With the Misty Mansion and the 3 Holy Lands working together to seal it off, how would there be any news to spread? This 9 serenities and 14 masters is really awesome. He has character. I like him. I like him very much. June Moxie's eyes revealed a look of fascination. This 9 serenities and 14 masters, I really want to be friends with him. Speaking of which, these 9 nether young masters are really similar to you in character. They are both crazy and wild. No wonder you admire them and want to be friends with them. But, just thinking about it is enough. Don't even think about making friends with them. With your current strength, they can probably crush you with just a finger. Mei Shuyan rolled her eyes at June Moxie, giving him the most formal disdain for his fantasies. Oh! Everyone burst into laughter. But as they laughed, their faces became even more solemn. Obviously, everything that Mei Shuyan had said had a huge impact on them. The ignorant are fearless. The more you know, the more you know, the more you know how insignificant you were in the past. These things are still very far away from us. We don't need to think about it, at least not now. Let me give you a word of advice. June Moxie smiled lightly. Take a step. Only when you take this step can you say that you are qualified to take this step. Only then can you think about the next step. If you aren't even Tian Xian, what qualifications do you have to think about being a supreme? That will only make you unable to breathe, or even force yourself to death. So, if you really want to compare yourself to that monstrous 9 nether 14th young master, you'd better wait till you've reached the saint level before considering again. Solitary Eagle laughed bitterly. I'm afraid I can't even reach the venerable level in this lifetime, not to mention the legendary saint level. Today, I've heard of a new level. Frog at the bottom of a well. The 8 great masters are just a few frogs at the bottom of a well with a slightly wider vision. Sigh. He let out a long sigh, feeling an indescribable sense of loss. Solitary Eagle, you can't have this kind of mentality. Admittedly, after knowing these higher levels and realms, it will undoubtedly be a huge blow to your current level. But do you know one thing? Mei Shuyan said slowly. Do you know that there are so many experts in the 3 Holy Lands, and more than half of them were chosen from the pugilistic world? Any one of them was an all-powerful figure in the past. But now that you see it, all of them have no strength of character, and are no different from the pugilistic world people. Do you know why? Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun were shocked, and thought deeply. It is precisely because they also know about these stories that they naturally develop a kind of decadent thinking like, I have no hope of reaching that level in this lifetime. Then, they feel that their arrogance and achievements in the past are laughable. Thus, they slowly become silent and even degenerate. Thus, they lose their strength of character and even become despicable and lowly, revealing the bad habits that they have been suppressing in the past. Once their state of mind is broken, they can't be stopped. In the end, as you have seen, a group of supreme martial artists and superior martial artists have become like small fries, sucking up to those above them and bullying those below them, completely losing the dignity that they once had as experts. This is their tragedy. But I do not wish for this tragedy to happen to you. Mei Shuyan said solemnly. Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyun's bodies shook violently, and their faces revealed sincere shame. Suddenly, they stood up and bowed deeply to Mei Shuyan, saying, Thank you, Venerable Mei, for your warning. Jin Yu's words, the two of us will always remember it. The Venerable One's words have given the two of us a new lease on life. If we can make any progress in this life, it will be because of the Venerable One's words today. We can't thank you enough, so please accept our gratitude. Mei Shuyan sat still and accepted their bow. She smiled and said, It's good that you have thought it through. This is a knot in your heart. As long as you can think it through, then in the future, there will definitely be a place for the two of you in the world of experts. If it is difficult to solve, then you will be mediocre and useless, and end up like those people. The real key lies in you. As for those people, if they can't even see through this, then it is not a pity for them to become small fries. Solitary Eagle and Feng Wanyan bowed to accept the teachings. Jun Moxie laughed and said, "Everyone, don't think about these distant things anymore. Where there is a will, there is a way. Everything is possible. In another 1.5 days, we will reach Blizzard Silver City's territory. Shui Yan, do you think the 3 Holy Lands will send out Saint-level experts?" Mei Shuyan frowned and said, "I am also considering this question. However, according to the usual practice, if they want to send out Saint-level experts, the 3 Holy Lands will need to discuss it together. After all, Saints are not cabbages, and any one of them is an extremely valuable asset. Even the 3 Holy Lands will not have too many, the chances are not high. However, if it is to deal with that, master of yours, there is a high possibility that they will send out Saint-level experts." Oh? Jun Moxie's heart sank. Looking back at Tian Xiang, he couldn't help but have a lot of things on his mind. Grandfather sighed, if a Saint-level expert really came to attack, then what? That side was a paper tiger that would be broken with one poke. The next morning, the group of people got up on time, boarded the flying chicken, and flew away. In just a day's flight, they had crossed another 8,000 miles. 8,000 miles of clouds and moon had floated past them in a single night. The closer they got to Blizzard Silver City's territory, the colder the weather became. In the distance, an everlasting white frost appeared in everyone's eyes. The snowy mountains were already in sight. Blizzard Silver City, we will be here soon. Bear Mountain danced with joy on the back of the crane, his fists pounding on his chest as he roared. His voice was so loud that it directly blew away the boundless clouds around him. This kind of noise immediately attracted the Silver City's little princess, Han Yen Meng, to roll her eyes. Then, on the back of a large crane, a burly man with the back of a tiger and the waist of a bear actually looked at Bear Mountain with a pair of affectionate eyes. Of course, Fourth Elder Bear did not notice. The night was hazy, the birds were hazy, and everything was silent. Jun Moxie, who was on the Eagle King's back, praised sincerely, "Fourth Brother Bear's voice is really loud and clear. This sound wave is really worthy of its name. The waves behind push the waves in front, and each wave is stronger than the previous one." The Eagle King suddenly staggered, and almost fell head first. "Big brother, you are my blood brother, okay? We are at an altitude of 30,000 feet, can you not say these words that will short-circuit my brain? It is very dangerous." In the evening, they were less than 500 miles away from the snowy mountains. Everyone was already in a world of ice and snow, and if they continued forward, they would be in the territory of Blizzard Silver City. Mei Shuyan whistled, and 1,500 flying Xian beasts landed uniformly on the ground. After resting for a night, they would be facing Blizzard Silver City tomorrow. Everyone had just finished setting up camp when suddenly, "Is Tian Fa's Venerable Mei here? An old friend has come to visit, please don't hesitate to meet him." An elegant voice rang out, and Mei Shuyan and the rest were stunned. They had just arrived here, and the tents had just been set up, and someone had already come to find them. This was really unexpected, this was too fast. Jun Moxie stood up, and motioned for everyone not to follow him out. Then, he and Mei Shuyan walked out side by side. Suddenly, a total of 6 extremely powerful divine senses swept through the air, and the entire world was suddenly filled with a kind of extremely powerful pressure. Boom, 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 it was as if everyone could not breathe, and found it difficult to breathe. As this aura filled the world, in the blink of an eye, 6 figures suddenly appeared in the distance, like little black dots on the snowy ground. The little black dots instantly turned into little soybeans, and then became the size of a fist. With a swoosh, they had already arrived in front of them. 6 people appeared in front of them, and they were less than 5 zhang away. All of them had a stern expression on their faces, and their eyes were like lightning as they looked at Mei Shuyan and Jun Moxie. Jun Moxie suddenly felt as if he was naked in a world of ice and snow, and these sharp gazes could see through him. Even his soul felt as if it was about to leave his body. Jun Moxie's heart shook and his body tensed up. He hurriedly activated the art of unlocking Heaven's fortune to get rid of this terrifying feeling, but his heart was already in his throat. Shrinking the earth to an inch, 1,000 li in an instant. Looking at the 6 people in front of her, Mei Shuiyan's pupils shrank abruptly, and she raised her guard abruptly. A strong battle intent rose up in her. The 6 people in front of her all had extraordinary strength, and any one of them was a super expert. Venerable level experts. 6 of them appeared at once. Chapter 674. Alright. Let's continue today. The first update is here. I'm still asking for monthly votes. Tianxiang City. The 3 princes had suddenly received a surprise that they could only dream of. It felt like a dream. They had been watching their father, the emperor, who had great talent and bold vision, get beaten down little by little, humiliated, and humiliated to the extreme. Their father, who had once been indomitable, had slowly become depressed, and his once strong influence was slowly vanishing into nothingness. The imperial family of Tianxiang was in a precarious situation, and the throne that they had been looking forward to for so many years had become a hot potato, and had even become a seedling that was courting death. They were faced with Jun Moxie's strength, and his arrogant, despotic, and unscrupulous behavior, which made the hearts of the 3 princes turn ice cold. They had suddenly ushered in the greatest turning point of their lives in this extremely hesitant moment, and had also received the most powerful assistance. The 3 holy lands. This was especially true for the second prince. After all, he was ill. Then, he had been frightened by Big Bear and Earthcracker. Moreover, his right-hand men had been forced to leave the Jun family after they had seen how powerful the Jun family was. Even Qing De Chao had died a violent death. In fact, he had been bitten to death. This cruel fact had scared the soul out of the second prince's body. The second prince had been bedridden for the past few months. So, he had been stunned for a long time when the servants of the prince's mansion had informed him that Li Yuran had come to visit. Quickly invite her in. Quickly invite her in. The second prince jumped out of his bed barefooted. His face was full of eagerness for talent. Li Yuran was someone that he had been trying to win over, but had never succeeded in doing so. It was a pity that Jun Dashao didn't know about this. If he did, wouldn't he have thought of Cao Cao and Cao Mengde who had welcomed Suyu barefooted? Bah! I can't believe I'm comparing this wastrel to a treacherous hero. Your Highness, I trust you've been well since we last met. Li Yuran walked in and straightened his back. He didn't salute and only gave a simple greeting. His face was still as carefree as before. His smile made people feel as if they were bathing in the spring breeze. Behind him were 5 old men, each of them exuding the aura of an expert. Beside them were 3 men in hemp garments. They looked to be in their 30s or 40s, but their every movement was no different from an ordinary person. Only his eyes were clear and bright, with a clear distinction between black and white, which made him stand out from the masses, but that was all. Yuran, I missed you so much. The second prince held Li Yuran's hand enthusiastically. I haven't seen you during this period of time. I can't even eat well. May I know who these people are? Li Yuran smiled gently, but a trace of disgust flashed in the depths of his eyes. He said with a smile, Your Royal Highness, these people are all extraordinary big shots. Let me introduce them to you. This is old Ma, this is old Lu, this is old Niu, this is old Zhu, and this is old Yang. Your Royal Highness, these 5 big shots are all supreme martial artists. When she said the last 4 words, Li Yuran paused between each word, and said in a solemn tone, These 5 supreme martial artists are from the Supreme Golden City, one of the 3 holy lands. One of the reasons why they are here is to help your Highness ascend to the throne. Supreme martial artists? Help me ascend to the throne of the Empress? The second prince's hands and legs trembled, and his entire body trembled like noodles. Suddenly, his tears fell like rain. I never thought that I, Yang Dan, Would have such a day, boo-hoo, the heavens really took pity on him. He had dreamed of this for so many years, and now he finally had help. These are all supreme martial artists, ah. These are the true pinnacle existences of this world, ah. Didn't Jun Moxie only dare to be so arrogant because he had the help of Solitary Eagle? But now, you only have one Solitary Eagle, and at most, you have Feng Huanyun, who is a guest elder. But this prince has 5 people. The help of 5 supreme martial artists. Wahahaha, first, he was filled with hope, then helplessly depressed, then disheartened. But now, there was light at the end of the tunnel. The second prince felt that his life had not been easy. It was full of ups and downs, thrilling to the core. Seeing how agitated the second prince was, the 5 old men revealed looks of extreme disdain in their eyes. Isn't it just a secular throne? Even if you become the emperor, how many years can you live with that puny body of yours? Is it worth it to be this agitated? These mortals are really incomprehensible. You want to go against Jun Moxie with this kind of conduct? You're really blind. Not to mention you, even the 5 of us are not his match. If we don't have a stronger backing, we'll have to run the moment we see that little thief Jun. The 5 supreme martial artists only nodded lightly at the second prince's deliberate flattery. The second prince greeted them one by one with a face full of smiles. When it was Old Yang's turn, the second prince said, "Old Yang, I didn't expect us to be from the same clan." Old Yang was a little nervous, not because of the second prince, but because of the 3 saints behind him. Why is this kid talking so much? Letting the 3 saints act as servants behind me? This will shorten my lifespan. Hearing the question, he replied without hesitation, "No. We are not from the same clan. You are the yang in a poplar tree, a dead sheep, I am a bleeding sheep, alive." Pfft. The 3 saints behind him could not help coughing. The yang in a poplar tree, a dead sheep, I am a bleeding sheep, alive, this is too classic. You're called Yang Dan. One of the saints finally asked after holding it in for a while. As the ruler of a country, how could he give his son such a name? Yang Dan. What a talented person. Ah, yes, I am Yang Dan. May I know who these 3 are? The second prince asked hopefully as he looked at the 3 middle-aged men. How he wished that these 3 were also supreme martial artists. If that was the case, it would be equivalent to having all 8 supreme martial artists. With a supreme martial artist in my hands, the world is mine. Unifying the world, I am the only one. Ah, these 3 people are my attendants. From now on, how about we stay at the second prince's residence? Li Yuran smiled gracefully, and spoke in a tone that suggested he was showing his gratitude. It was not that she did not want to tell him, but for someone like the second prince, the highest level was supreme martial artists. If he were to tell her that these 3 were saints who were dozens of times more powerful than supreme martial artists, she probably would not be able to react in time. Why would the second prince care about his tone of voice? He was already overwhelmed by the sudden ecstasy and agreed immediately. In the end, he still had some time to think and said, "Yang Dan, am naturally overjoyed to be able to receive help from a senior from the Holy Lands. However, I know that I cannot accept a reward without doing anything. Is there anything you need me to do?" He secretly made up his mind. No matter what it was, he would try his best to complete it. If he really could not complete it, he would create the conditions to complete it. He had to make these people stay at all costs. This was his only hope at the moment. It's not a big deal. Li Yuran chuckled. We just need to use your influence to help us with some things. That's why I need a certain amount of authority. No problem. From now on, Brother Yuran will have full authority over all the powers that belong to me. You don't need to go through me. The second prince gritted his teeth and thought for a long time. Finally, he stomped his foot and made a decision that was completely unimaginable to him. Give up authority. And it was a complete decentralization. You can't catch a wolf without sacrificing your children. You can't catch a hooligan without sacrificing your wife. You can't catch someone without sacrificing your chrysanthemum. That was why the second Prince Yang Dan went all out today. He was betting on this. Good. Your Highness is wise. Li Yuran's face revealed a trace of a smile as the two of them shook hands. Next, I will issue my first order. I want detailed information on all the generals, families, and powers that belong to the Jun family. Li Yuran said slowly with a smile. No problem. I will make the arrangements immediately. The second prince agreed immediately and carried out the orders. At the same time, Xi Jinghong brought 5 supremes and 3 ordinary people to the third Prince Yangzhe's palace. The Hermitage's men also successfully entered the eldest Prince Yangqiu's inner circle. It was a very similar scene. The 3 princes of Tianxiang had simultaneously become the 3 great puppets. The most willing puppets in the history of Tianxiang had been born. Moreover, 3 of them had been made in one go. An unprecedented storm was secretly brewing in the Tianxiang city. The 3 royal brothers that Jun Imo Xie had once jokingly called Yang Qiu, Yang Dan, and Yang Jiji, were finally able to launch a counterattack. Heartless Venerable Du Ju, World's Edge Venerable Shao Tianya, Compassionate Venerable Zhen Sibei, Broken Sword Venerable Hua Fengwen, Cruel Blade Venerable Chu Wuqing, Rogue Venerable Lu Qiu. Mei Xuan looked at the 6 names one by one. Jun Moxie felt a chill run down his spine. Oh my god, 6 venerable ones actually came out at once. They really think highly of me. It's been many years since we last met. Venerable Mei's memory is really good. You actually named all of us without any mistakes. I'm impressed. Broken Sword Venerable Hua Fengwen smiled. His black beard and white robe fluttered in the wind. His tone was gentle as if he was chatting with an old friend. You are all venerables, the top masters in the Jianghu. How could I dare to forget such illustrious power? Mei Xuan smiled faintly. She squinted her eyes and said, I wonder what the 6 venerables are here for. Are you here to give me some advice? How could I dare to talk about it? As for advice, we should be asking Venerable Mei for advice. I'm just here to discuss some matters with Venerable Mei, Hua Fengwen said calmly with a gentle smile on his face. Venerable Mei, you're right. What is it? Mei Xuan frowned and exchanged a look with Jun Moxie. Venerable Mei, with the 3 saints and 1 ferocious, have always adhered to the teachings of our ancestors. We do not care about worldly disputes, so as not to disturb the balance of the continent. Venerable Mei's participation in the war between the Jun family and the Silver Blizzard City has violated this rule. I believe that even the elders of Tian Fa would not be happy if they knew about this. Therefore, the 6 of us are here to persuade you. If Venerable Mei is willing to follow our advice and leave safely, we can pretend that this never happened, Hua Fengwen said elegantly with a smile. I just finished working overtime at 3:00 last night. Then, I talked to Shi Zhu and was about to go to sleep. But I was scolded. I took off my nightgown. Then, I heard someone shouting angrily from below, whose coat is on the horizontal bar. I shuddered and remembered that I had hung my coat on the horizontal bar yesterday. I forgot to keep it. I quickly put on my nightgown again and ran down. It was an old lady in her 60s. I quickly thanked her, but I didn't expect to be scolded. Why did you leave your coat here? I smiled and said to hang it, but the old lady said, you use stars to hang it? I was speechless. Then, the old lady started to say, you hung it on the horizontal bar like that. I thought someone had hanged himself here. You scared me to death, you know. You can't even move it in such a strong wind. Is your coat made of iron? I couldn't sleep since 11:00 last night. I kept looking at it from the window. This time, I even wanted to call the police. She waved the phone in her hand. I was sweating. Explain. My coat has a hat. Now that I look at it, the hat hanging down. It does look like that. I humbly sent the old lady upstairs. I supported her as she scolded me all the way until we reached home. The old lady felt a little embarrassed and said, "Actually, I'm not scolding you, okay?" I nodded and said, "Yes, you're not scolding me, you're not scolding me." When I got home, I washed my face and washed the spittle off. Then, I came back to my senses. You've been scolding me for half an hour, and your spittle has covered my eyes. You're not scolding me. Who are you scolding? Chapter 675. Retreat safely. Hua Fengwen, what if I say no? Mei Xuan smiled Lengleng. Then. I'm afraid it won't be pleasant, the Venerable of the Broken Sword, Hua Fengwen, said regretfully. Mei Xuan snorted disdainfully. Her expression was cold as she said sharply, "Follow the teachings of the ancestors." He, Hua Fengwen, you should know that the ancestors of the four families made a promise to look at the big picture. Everything is for the Xian continent and the people of the world. He strictly ordered the four families not to fight with each other, let alone kill each other. Anyone who disobeys will be punished by the four families. But now, the three holy lands are determined to kill me. You have so many tricks up your sleeves, ambushes, and assassinations. Why didn't you say the ancestral teachings? Why did he have to pretend to be so compassionate at this time? Why is everyone from the elusive world of immortals learning to be hypocrites from Mo Wu Dao? If you want to kill me here, just say it. I, Mei Xuan, am ready. Why do you have to come up with such high-sounding reasons? Hua Fengwen, don't you think it's too hypocritical? The Venerable of the Broken Sword, Hua Fengwen, was unmoved. He laughed and said seriously, I think Venerable Mei has misunderstood something. For tens of thousands of years, the four families have always supported each other. We are as close as brothers and have always been a harmonious family. How could there be such a rebellious thing as killing Venerable Mei? Venerable Mei, you must have been mistaken. But the six of you are here together. Am I mistaken as well? Mei Xuan looked at him mockingly. But we are here with good intentions. Otherwise, Venerable Mei will make a big mistake and regret it. Hua Fengwen sighed and said seriously, you must know that in this world, love cannot be mended by heaven, and hatred cannot be filled. Venerable Mei, don't sink yourself into an irrecoverable state just because of a moment of anger. That's really not worth it. Even if I'm consigned to eternal damnation, that's my problem. It doesn't seem to have anything to do with you, right? Mei Xuan said coldly, if there's nothing else, you can leave now. Mei Xuan unceremoniously asked her to leave. With regards to the three holy lands, he had finally lost all hope. Things had already reached this point, and the three holy lands had already lost close to 100 people in order to deal with him. Yet, this fellow was still lying through his teeth, saying that justice was the priority. It was really annoying. Such hypocrisy was even more unbearable than some brazen villains. We've already tried our best to persuade you, but Venerable Mei, are you going to remain unmoved? Disregarding the teachings of the ancestors and looking down on the common people of the world? Venerable Mei, do you really want to be so stubborn? Hua Fengwen looked at her with a smile. That won't be good. Very bad. He smiled as he spoke. His voice was gentle, and it could even be considered gentle. However, the meaning behind his words was that he was under great pressure. So what? Mei Xuan's face turned cold, and a formless majestic aura emanated from her. A cold and inviolable aura appeared on her body. You want me to see the consequences with just the six of you? Hua Fengwen, you think too highly of yourself. Venerable Mei, you really have a sharp tongue. Haha, impressive. Lu Qiu, the gangster Venerable, could not hold it in any longer. He squinted his eyes and looked at Mei Xuan. He clicked his tongue and said, Venerable Mei always wears a black robe and looks mysterious. I didn't know that Venerable Mei is such a beauty. Sorry for not recognizing you. Mei Xuan frowned. The more Jun Mo Xia listened, the more uncomfortable he felt. He looked at this old man's obscene eyes and drooling face. Suddenly, a burst of anger surged within him. He wanted to twist this monkey-faced man's head off, and use it as a urinal. He took a step forward and looked gloomily at the pervert venerable in front of him. He snorted and said, "Pervert venerable? Ryukyu? That's me." Lu Qiu rolled his red eyes and looked at Jun Moxie. He suddenly laughed. "You're Jun Moxie, right? The one who follows Venerable Mei around shamelessly? That's me." Jun Moxie tilted his head and looked at him. "What do you want?" "Humph. Do you think you're a match for the beautiful Venerable Mei with this kind of material? You're a toad lusting after a swan. Kid, if you know what's good for you, get the hell away from me." Lu Qiu snorted and said rudely. This fellow was originally a perverted demon, and his habits had not changed even after so many years. However, after entering the three holy lands, he had lost the opportunity to do so, and was also restricted by the saints. He had been holding back for so many years. At this moment, when he saw Mei Shuiyan, the evil fire that had been suppressed in his heart for many years suddenly burst out. For a moment, it surged violently, and he couldn't control himself. He only felt that his lower body was swelling up like a balloon, and his face was a little red. He breathed heavily and couldn't stop even if he wanted to. Then, she saw that Jun Imo Xia was acting as her protector, and she couldn't help but feel even more irritated. "What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? No matter what, I'm handsome and elegant. No matter what, I look like a decent person. Sitting on the street, I'm loved by everyone. Girls will rush to throw themselves into my arms. At least it won't be difficult for me to find a wife. No matter how you look at it, I'm better than you, right?" Jun Imo Xia squinted his eyes and looked at him with contempt. He started with his appearance, ruthlessly attacking him. "Me? What's wrong with me? You look like a human, but do you think I don't look like a human?" Lu Qiu's biggest regret in his life was that he was too ugly and had no luck with women. He always forced himself on them, which was very boring. But he could not decide his own appearance. He was helpless. Now that Jun Imo Xia had poked at his wound, he was naturally enraged. With an angry roar, his aura exploded, and the surrounding ice and snow were sent flying. "You also know that you don't look good? Well, even if you're too shy to look in the mirror, you can always see your bad luck when you pee. Look at your shoehorn face, it's like a ripe persimmon that fell from a tree and landed on a sharp stone. Then, it was stepped on by a bear, and the bear was the one with athlete's foot." Jun Imo Xia pursed his lips and pointed his finger at him. Using a judgmental tone, he described in detail, "It's so bad that it can't get any worse. Do you know, I really admire your parents now. To be able to create someone like you, they are really two great talents that have never been seen before in the history of the world. What's even more admirable is that after giving birth to you, she was actually able to resist the urge to strangle you to death. This kind of endurance is truly extraordinary. What's even more admirable is that, she actually raised you. You have to know how disgusting it is to face your face every day. Truly admirable, a man and a woman, two strong people." Jun Imo Xia's face was full of amazement as he clicked his tongue, as if he couldn't understand such a thing. He had never imagined that the endurance of humans could reach such a level. Hearing this, even Du Ju, Zhen Sibei, and the others could not help but laugh. Jun Moxie's mouth was really too vicious. It could simply anger a living person to death, and then make the dead person jump up and down in the coffin. "Jun Moxie. I'm going to kill you. I'm definitely going to kill you." Lu Qiu roared and almost vomited blood. He was so angry that the green ribbon that tied his hair snapped. His long hair stood straight up, and the snow around him flipped outwards from where he stood, as if there was magma erupting underground. It was obvious that the rogue venerable was extremely angry. Then, a figure flashed. Lu Qiu was still standing at the same spot, but his body had already left 6 afterimages in the air. One of his hands had already grabbed Jun Moxie's head. When a venerable was angry, the earth shook and the sky shook. Not to mention a venerable who was in a state of rage. Du Ju and the others wanted to stop him, but it was too late. The enraged Lu Qiu was about to crush Jun Moxie's skull. In his rage, Lu Qiu did not restrain his strength at all. He unleashed his full power. He wanted to kill Jun Moxie with his palm. Other venerables might care about Jun Moxie's master and the safety of the three holy lands, but Lu Qiu had always been lawless, so he did not care. In fact, he was even thinking in his heart, if I kill this brat, at most, I'll just leave and let the three holy lands deal with this mess. There are more restrictions after leaving that place, and I can do whatever I want. Anyone who slandered this deity for being ugly had never been able to live in this world. How could I make an exception for this kid? That was why Lu Qiu was filled with extreme cruelty. Besides, Venerable Mei is so beautiful. If I can't enjoy her, you'll have to destroy her. Humph, the figure suddenly flashed, and there was a loud boom. The five venerables only felt the ground suddenly tremble. Then, they saw the two whirlwinds suddenly converge at one spot. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared. The snow and ice on the ground seemed to gather towards the whirlwinds like weightless dust, forming a huge whirlwind pillar. In the blink of an eye, it shot up to a height of 40 to 50 feet. Jun Moxie was still standing at the same spot, but Mei Shuiyan had disappeared. The situation was obvious. The moment Lu Qiu attacked, Mei Shuiyan attacked as well. Just as Jun Moxie was about to counterattack, she blocked his attack and fought with Lu Qiu. Mei Shuiyan used her deep love for Jun Moxie to pass the barrier of love and successfully entered the third stage of the Venerable. She had unknowingly fallen in love with Jun Moxie and saw him as the only one in her life. How could she let someone hurt the person she loved the most in front of her? She would not let it happen even if she risked her life. As long as I, Mei Shuiyan, am still alive, no one can hurt my Xie in front of me. Lu Qiu attacked out of rage, but Mei Shuiyan also attacked out of rage. Chapter 676. Lu Qiu only wanted to kill Jun Xie. Mei Shuiyan's attack made him even angrier and more frustrated. Thus, he attacked without hesitation, without holding back at all. Du Ju and the others were shocked. The six of them had come here with the intention of greeting each other. In other words, he was saying some high-sounding words that no one actually believed. Persuade Mei Shuiyan to retreat? That was nonsense. How could she retreat after coming here for tens of thousands of miles? All they wanted was for Mei Shuiyan to reject them. That way, they would have a good reason to fight. Venerables were venerables after all. They had to care about their status and reputation. How could they start a fight like a normal Luluo? Moreover, they could also find out more about this place. Who knew that a fight would break out the moment the six of them arrived? Lu Qiu's lust flared up at this moment. He had said those nonsensical words and had lost his status as a venerable. Moreover, it had led to him fighting with Venerable Mei to such an extent. This guy is really not good at accomplishing anything, but good at spoiling things. Zhen Sibei Lengleng glared at Chu Wuqing. Among the six of them, Chu Wuqing and Lu Qiu came from the same place, the illusory Blood Sea. The merciful Venerable Zhen Sibei and the Venerable of the Broken Sword Hua Fengwen were from the elusive world of immortals, while the heartless Venerable Du Ju and the Venerable of the Edge of the World, Xiao Tianya, were from the Supreme Golden City. At this moment, even Hua Fengwen and Xiao Tianya were dissatisfied with Lu Qiu. They all felt that it was really shameful to come out with this guy. As a venerable, no matter how perverted you are, you can't be so horny. It's like you haven't seen a woman in 8 lifetimes. You're so thirsty. The other 5 venerables looked helpless when they saw the snowstorm in the air. Once a battle of this level started, there was no room for outsiders to intervene. Unless everyone was willing to throw away their pride and gang up on him, but if that was the case, the other side still had 2,000 pinnacle level 9 contestants and beast kings. How could they possibly be here to watch a show? Although the 5 of them were venerable ones, and their strengths were certainly several levels higher than the mystical beasts in front of them, as the saying went, ants could bite an elephant to death when there were enough of them. In particular, mystical beasts were known for their tough skin and thick flesh that could not be killed. Even a venerable one would be turned into minced meat if they were to attack a swarm of 2,000 bees. It was impossible to fight in numbers. At this moment, Long Crane and the rest of the Beast Kings had already surrounded them. Every one of them had an unfriendly look on their faces, and it seemed as if they were itching for a fight. At this time, as long as any of the Beast Kings or young Master June yelled out, a beast tide would definitely follow. Suddenly, bang! Mei Shuiyan's white figure landed on the ground. She pulled June Imo Xia, and both of them retreated at the same time. Boom! The pillar of ice and snow in the air rotated at a high speed like a whirlwind. Suddenly, it exploded. A figure grunted and flew out with a whoosh. When he landed on the ground, the soil, sand, stones, and ice splashed up with a bang, almost covering the entire sky. Lu Qiu's body suddenly rushed out from the dust. His face was ferocious. On his right chest, there were 3 neat handprints. As the cold wind blew, the 3 palm-shaped pieces of cloth fluttered like butterflies. Lu Qiu's face was red, and his eyes looked like he wanted to eat someone. He roared again and rushed forward like lightning. Mei Shuiyan was calm, and there was not a speck of dust on her clothes. Lu Qiu, on the other hand, was in a sorry state. Everyone knew that Lu Qiu had suffered a great loss. It was possible that he had suffered internal injuries. Lu Qiu, you're not done yet. Don't you have any shame? Chu Wuqing shouted, but Lu Qiu ignored him and continued to rush towards Mei Shuiyan. After suffering such a big loss in front of so many people, how could he swallow this humiliation? First, he was insulted by June Moxie, then beaten up by Mei Shuiyan. I'm also a venerable. He was a dignified venerable realm expert. If I don't get back at him, how can I survive in the world of venerables? Mei Shuiyan watched him pounce on her. Her expression was as calm as usual, but there was a hint of a cold smile on her face. She crossed her jade-like palms, and like the petals of an orchid, she made a strange gesture. Suddenly, the world seemed to freeze. The wind stopped blowing, and the clouds stopped moving. Even the snow and gravel that were scattering in the air were frozen in midair. A murderous look flashed across Mei Shuiyan's eyes. I didn't want to kill you just now because of the other 5 people. I've already given you a way out. But now you're rushing forward again. You don't know when to stop. So what if you're a venerable? Am I not allowed to kill a venerable? Anyone who dares to hurt Imo Xia will be killed. Chu Wuqing was shocked. He gathered all his Xian Qi and rushed forward at full speed. There was a flash of light in his hand, and he rushed forward at high speed. He wanted to use his Xian Qi to break through Mei Shuiyan's space lock and save Lu Qiu. He shouted, "Venerable Mei, please have mercy." However, it was too late. Everything was too late. Mei Shuiyan Lengleng said, "World Cage." Lu Qiu's lightning-fast body suddenly froze in midair. He could not move at all. There was a world above him, but he was strangely frozen in the air. Lu Qiu's character was bad, but his Xian Qi was extraordinary. He had reached the 2nd level of the Venerable. But now, Mei Shuiyan had broken through the peak of the 2nd level of the Venerable and reached the 3rd level of the Venerable. The world cage that Mei Shuiyan cast could not be avoided or broken through, except for those who were at the same level or higher than the 3rd level. This was on a completely different level from the world cage that Mei Shuiyan used in Tian Fa. Even Lu Qiu, who was already at the Venerable level, could not do it. Lu Qiu was shocked. He felt that his body was no longer under his control. It was as if he was a small fish swimming freely in the water, but the water suddenly turned into ice, and he was suddenly frozen in ice. He could no longer struggle. At this moment, Mei Shuiyan's white figure flew over like a bolt of lightning. A pair of slender, jade-like palms made a series of peng-peng sounds, which merged into a loud bang. The moment they touched, she struck 30 times. It was solid. All of them landed on Lu Qiu's body. If it was not for the fact that she was worried about Chu Wuqing's attack, Mei Xuan would have slapped this despicable person 1,000 times. Lu Qiu's body rolled out like a ball. In the air, it was like a fallen leaf falling from a tree branch, or like a hurricane suddenly rising in the orchard in late autumn. The fruits hanging on the tree branches were swept up and sent flying away. At the same time, Mei Xuan's sleeves fluttered in the wind. Her slender body did not land on the ground. Instead, she made a slight turn in the air. Her posture was so graceful that she looked like a fairy who had descended from the heavens. Her sleeves fluttered lightly like snow in the wind, yet as fast as lightning. She clashed with Chu Wuqing's broken blade. To be more precise, it should be against that dazzling saber light. This was because the famous broken saber of Chu Wuqing had yet to appear. Or rather, the saber had appeared long ago, but no one could see it. This was because the dazzling saber light had attracted everyone's attention. The two great forces finally collided, and there was not the slightest bit of trickery. Pang! Mei Xuan's unique skill, space lock cage of heaven and earth, could not withstand the impact and broke. Mei Xuan's sleeves, which were filled with pure Xian Qi, clashed with the dazzling saber light. However, it was not damaged at all. Her graceful body floated back down in a beautiful arc. The moment her clothes fluttered in the wind, she had already returned to Jun Imosie's side. She looked even more relaxed and graceful, as if she had just returned from a stroll in the garden. There was no sign of a fierce battle. Chu Wuqing flipped over and landed on the ground. His body shook slightly and he stabilized himself. Then, he returned to his previous empty-handed state. The dazzling saber disappeared once again. From the beginning to the end, no one could really see Chu Wuqing's broken saber. Chu Wuqing, on the other hand, looked at Mei Xuan in shock. Venerable Level 3. Venerable Mei, congratulations on your breakthrough. Although he was congratulating her, the expression on his face was very complicated. It seemed like admiration, jealousy, and even a bit of unwillingness. Behind him, Du Ju and the others all paled upon hearing this. Third-level Venerable was not the same as first or second-level Venerables. No wonder Mei Xuan did not have any misgivings when facing the 6 of them at the same time. Among the 6 of them, there were 3 first-level Venerables and 3 second-level Venerables. Before Mei Xuan's breakthrough, she was only at the pinnacle of second-level Venerables even though she was stronger than any of them. With this lineup, even if the Xian beast's physique was far superior to that of humans, it was still more than enough to deal with her. But now, this wishful thinking had completely failed. With Venerable Mei's breakthrough, her strength had increased tremendously. Coupled with her unparalleled skills and amazing speed, it was very likely that she would be able to defeat them one by one. The 6 of them had come here with the original intention of displaying their powerful lineup to intimidate and then create a dignified reason to intervene. Also, they wanted to find out the truth. Now, they had found out the truth, but they were completely shocked by the other party's strength. At this moment, there was a bang sound from afar. It was the sound of Lu Qiu's body landing on the ground. A huge crater was formed on the ground, and stone fragments flew everywhere. Lu Qiu stood up with one hand on his chest and staggered out. His ugly face looked even more miserable, and the corner of his mouth was red. Chapter 677. Lu Qiu seemed to want to say something, but as soon as he opened his mouth, blood flowed out even faster. He quickly shut his mouth and used his Xian Qi to regulate his breathing. For a moment, he could not even speak. Then, he closed his eyes and ignored the thousands of level 9 peak Xian beasts around him as he started to heal himself. He knew that his injuries were serious and could not be delayed any longer. Even if he dragged it out any longer, he would still lose his life. Mei Xuan's attack was extremely vicious. Although she did not use her full strength out of fear of Chu Wuqing, it was still not something that Lu Qiu could withstand. Everyone was shocked. The thick and unusually red blood at the corner of Lu Qiu's mouth was from his internal organs. Lu Qiu was done for. Even if he did not die, with such injuries, it would be difficult for him to recover. He would probably lose at least 80% of his strength. Everyone was clearly aware of this fact in their hearts. Venerable Mei, what a vicious move. Chu Wuqing only took a glance before turning back to look at Mei Xuan with rage in his eyes. Vicious? You call this vicious? I don't think so. Jun Mo Xia smiled and asked, May I ask Sir Crippled Saber Venerable, why are all of you venerables gathered here? I'm guessing that you are not here to admire the snow, right? Let's not beat around the bush. We both know each other's motives, so why do we have to pretend to be the victim? This is how the martial world works. Especially since you've already reached the level of a venerable, you shouldn't be saying such things anymore. You are a laughing stock. Lu Qiu asked for it, and he deserved it. You're right. It was indeed my slip of the tongue earlier. Chu Wuqing looked at Jun Moxie with admiration and said, to be able to say such words, you must have understood the true meaning of the martial world. But, Jun Moxie, do you know another saying? He paused and said word by word, once you are in the martial world, you have no choice. Some things, even if they had to do it, they had to find a reason. Regardless of whether this reason is reasonable or not, there must be one. I naturally understand this logic, and I agree with it. Jun Moxie chuckled. Suddenly, he raised his hand and pointed with a murderous aura. Therefore, for this reason, this person must die. Young Master Jun was pointing at Lu Qiu's location. Dare I ask all of you, if anyone were to express his desire for your wife in front of you, I believe that none of you will let him off, right? Jun Moxie coldly smiled. This is the reason why you want him dead. We do not deny what you say. It's perfectly reasonable. Chu Wuqing smiled mercilessly and said, but we also have a reason to protect him. That is, we came together. We must leave with them. He looked at Jun Moxie with a hint of mockery in his eyes. Even though it was slight, it was obvious. Moreover, this kind of humiliation should be washed away by the man himself. If you hide behind a woman all the time, even if the enemy dies, you will not be able to avenge yourself. And you don't seem to have the ability to do so. Let's put this aside for today. We will settle the score in Silver City in the future. Regardless of whether we owe you or you owe us. Let's fight it out. You are right. I have no intention of letting others take care of me. Naturally, I will take revenge with my own hands. As for whether I have the ability or not. Jun Mo Xia laughed heartily. Suddenly, the thick murderous aura on his body disappeared without a trace. Following that, young Master Jun's body started to fade bit by bit. This strange phenomenon shocked the venerables again. Retracting one's aura quickly was something that everyone could do. But to be like Jun Mo Xia, who was filled with murderous aura a moment ago, and then retracted it in the next moment, not revealing a single trace of it. Such a clean and neat move, no one could do it. This young man's cultivation technique was indeed mysterious. Chu Wuqing's expression was the same as before. He didn't seem to have moved at all, but his body had already appeared in front of Lu Qiu without any sound or movement. Even though he hated this person, Chu Wuqing could not allow Lu Qiu to be killed right under his nose. The other venerables did not move. If they had to fight against Jun Moxie at the same time, then venerables were too worthless. Chu Wuqing alone was enough. He was even giving Jun Moxie a lot of credit. Jun Moxie had completely disappeared. Mei Xuan smiled and did not show any signs of helping. She seemed to be very confident in Jun Moxie. This action made Chu Wuqing even more suspicious. Jun Mo Xia had disappeared without a trace under his dumbfounded gaze. Even with his venerable level divine sense, he could not sense him at all. This strange and even inconceivable situation caused the other four venerable ones to feel inexplicably shocked. They had never seen such a strange movement technique. No matter how fast and ingenious it was, there should be some signs. However, this young man just disappeared into thin air without moving. Suddenly, a golden light flashed in the sky. Chu Wuqing's right hand moved quickly, and a small flying dagger landed on the ground. The flying dagger had a strange shape. It was thin, with smooth lines. It lay quietly on the ice, glinting coldly like a ghost's eye. Chu Wuqing was taken aback. Although this flying dagger was small, its sharpness was something he had never seen in his life. Others might not know, but he knew that this small flying dagger had actually left a mark on his broken sword. That was a super precious dagger that would not leave a mark even if it was smashed by a 10,000-pound hammer. The direction that the flying dagger was heading towards was where Lu Qiu was. Chu Wuqing could clearly see that if he did not stop it in time, the flying dagger would have pierced into Lu Qiu's throat. Just as the flying dagger landed on the ground, the sky was filled with golden lights again. This time, it was not just one spot. It was countless spots. Chu Wuqing shouted, and a ball of saber light burst out from his body. This ball of saber light was like a rainbow in the sky. From one side to the other, it formed a bridge-like arc. The rainbow light connected the two places, and with a few soft popping sounds, countless spots of golden light landed on the saber and gathered at Chu Wuqing's feet. With one slash, Chu Wuqing actually transferred all the attacks to the same place, and then struck down all of them. At this time, he was still empty-handed. The broken dagger that he was famous for was still nowhere to be seen. But Chu Wuqing's face changed. Oh no! That was what he was thinking. That was because the specks of golden light beneath his feet were actually just a large piece of fine gold dust. It was a feint. Sure enough, a dull sound came from behind, followed by Lu Qiu's inhuman scream. Jun Moxie! Chu Wuqing was enraged. He did not have time to turn around, so he used his high-speed movement technique to circle around Lu Qiu, who was on the verge of collapsing. In a split second, he slashed hundreds of times in all directions. There was absolutely no blind spot. Jun Moxie had just attacked Lu Qiu. Although he could not see his figure, Chu Wuqing was sure that he was within this range. He was definitely not far away. The technique that Chu Wuqing was using was a mysterious technique that he had comprehended during the war for seizing the heavens. The mutated races were just that strange. However, even though the mutated races' movement techniques were mysterious, there were still traces to be found. But Jun Moxie could not understand it at all. But whether he understood it or not, it was definitely effective. Because in the past, Chu Wuqing had used this kind of sudden inspiration to kill his opponent. 8 storms move heaven and earth. That was the name of this technique. After a few hundred years of practice, this technique was far from what it used to be. Chu Wuqing had used all his strength at this moment. The fact that Jun Moxie could hurt Lu Qiu under his tight protection made Chu Wuqing regard Jun Moxie as an opponent of the same level as himself. His heart was filled with fear. At such a young age, Jun Moxie already had such a terrifying cultivation. Previously, Jun Xia had used the yin-yang escape technique and disappeared without a trace. Then, he had sent out a meteorite flying dagger as a test. This flying dagger had been refined with the power of gold, and it was even stronger than before. The sharpness of the blade was enough to shock even an expert like Chu Wuqing. The golden rain that followed wasn't really caused by countless flying daggers. Instead, it was caused by Jun Xia taking out a piece of gold from his bosom and activating the power of gold, turning the piece of gold into a pile of gold dust. Then, he waved it. Seeing the same golden light appear, Chu Wuqing naturally used all his strength. He was afraid that the knife would be damaged, and he also wanted to protect the pervert lord, who was still recovering. Actually, with Jun Xia's current strength, it was impossible for him to summon so many flying daggers. Of course, if Jun Xia could really summon so many flying daggers, the power would not be something that Chu Wuqing could defend against. The reason for this, other than Jun Xia, was something that no one knew. Chu Wuqing's reaction was exactly what Jun Moxie had planned. Jun Imo Xia activated the yin-yang escape again and appeared in front of Lu Qiu while maintaining his invisible state. Then, he kicked Lu Qiu 13 times without hesitation, and each kick landed precisely on the same spot, Lu Qiu's crotch. "How dare you covet your father's woman? How dare you do it in front of me? If I don't turn you into a eunuch, how can I appease my anger?" After the 13 kicks, Jun Moxie immediately escaped. What was left between Lu Qiu's legs was a mess, and not a single part of him was left intact. Chapter 678. Jun Moxie's guess was right. Chu Wuqing reacted immediately and even used the most appropriate move. It was the most suitable move for such a situation. Jun Moxie retreated at full speed, but he only retreated less than 20 feet before his entire body was enveloped by the light of the sword. He felt as if his body was being cut apart. He had no choice but to enter the Hongjun Pagoda. "Who asked you to be so strong? I have a cheat. Do you? You little." The saber radiance cut through the heavens and the earth, and even the boulders and ice layers that were tens of feet away were lifted up. All of a sudden, with Lu Qiu as the center, there was an earth-shattering scene within a radius of tens of feet. Snow mist, ice shards, and stone shards soared into the sky like a fountain, leaving behind deep and bottomless scars on the ground. On the ground, there were 3 marks as wide as a finger's width. One could see how concentrated the attack was. But Chu Wuqing was disappointed and depressed. Because as soon as he unleashed this move, he saw that Jun Imo Xia had already returned to Mei Shuiyan's side, safe and sound, and was saying something to Mei Shuiyan with a face full of tenderness. As it turned out, this move of mine was completely hitting the air. The main character had already returned, but he couldn't retract this move that he had unleashed with all his might in a moment of haste. It was as if he was playing a monkey show, causing an earth-shattering commotion, but it was useless. This feeling almost made Chu Wuqing vomit blood. Furthermore, the person he had to protect was currently rolling on the ground with a twisted expression, clutching his crotch. Every time he rolled, there would be an eye-catching blood stain on the snowy ground, some of which were the yolk of a broken egg. Lu Qiu screamed in pain, and the sound that came from his throat did not sound like a human's. Du Ju and the rest looked at each other in shock. Although Lu Qiu was a venerable like them, he was severely injured by the counterattack of Venerable Mei, who was a level 3 venerable. Then, he was ambushed by Jun Moxie while he was recuperating. With his injuries, there was no way he could survive. Lu Qiu might even have a tough life. But what really surprised the 5 venerables was that they did not expect Jun Moxie to successfully attack another venerable under the protection of a venerable. Although Lu Qiu's strength was greatly reduced, Jun Imo Xia was able to successfully break through Chu Wuqing's protection and severely injure Lu Qiu. Then, he was able to escape unscathed. There was not even a trace of embarrassment. This kind of achievement was something that none of the 4 people watching from the side could achieve. This caused all 4 of them to feel a heartfelt shock at the same time. The way he looked at Jun Imo Xia was filled with fear and murderous intent. "We can't let him live. We can't let him live. Even if he lives for another day, he will be in danger. If we don't get rid of him, we will all become meat on the chopping block. We don't even need to wait for him to grow. Even now, he is already a great threat. Anyway, his master is already being dealt with by 9 saints, so he should be fine. It doesn't matter if we kill him now." Thinking of this, the 5 of them were filled with murderous intent. Mei Shuiyan quietly observed the changes in the battlefield. Her exquisite mind was analyzing the current situation. Her sensitive divine sense was firmly locked on the 5 venerables. If they dared to act rashly, Mei Shuiyan was ready to take action at any time. Seeing the murderous intent in Du Ju and the rest, Jun Moxie's expression remained unchanged, but his heart was filled with murderous intent. No matter how arrogant the 3 Holy Lands were, they wouldn't just send these 6 people. The strength of these 6 venerables was undoubtedly strong. But to deal with 500 beast kings and 2,000 peak Xian beasts, it was still a dream. Their strength was not enough. These 6 people must have led their own teams here. As for them appearing here alone, it was nothing more than a show of force to intimidate his side. But there were only 5 of them left. Could it be? A crazy thought suddenly appeared in Jun Moxie's mind. Could it be possible to kill these 6 venerables here? If it was possible, it would be the best thing in the world. Their eyes were filled with endless murderous intent. Obviously, they don't want me to live. Should I wish for them to live longer? Jun Moxie did not move. His face was as calm as ever. But the moment this thought sprouted in his mind, it was like weeds that had been fertilized. The more it grew, the more it grew. He believed that as long as he killed these 6 people, no matter how many more people from the 3 Holy Lands came, they would all be tigers without claws and teeth. Then, Blizzard's Silver City's mission would be successfully completed. Jun Xia, you're so young. How could you be so vicious? How could you be so ruthless? Looking at Lu Qiu rolling around on the ground and howling in pain, Du Ju and the rest could not contain their anger. Especially Chu Wuqing. If not for Venerable Mei, he would have gone up to Jun Dashao already. No matter how bad Lu Qiu's character was, he was still with them. Everyone knew that it was the cruelest and most embarrassing thing for a man to suffer such a blow. Even if Lu Qiu was lucky enough to survive, he would only be a laughingstock in the continent, a venerable level eunuch. Hua Fengwen floated in front of Lu Qiu and grasped Lu Qiu's wrist meridian. His face changed drastically when he checked. Chu Wuqing's face darkened, and he asked, "Brother Hua, how is Lu Qiu's condition?" "His injuries are severe. 7 of his ribs are broken, probably caused by Venerable Mei. More than 20 bones are broken from his shoulders to his thighs, probably caused by Venerable Mei's palm attack. Thankfully, Venerable Mei showed mercy and did not kill him. But what? His lower body is severely injured. The force penetrated through his internal organs, causing his elixir field to explode and his internal organs to shatter. That's not all. I was wondering how Lu Qiu managed to survive after his vital parts were injured. It turns out that, although his meridians are broken, they're still full of vitality. He won't die within a few days. He'll only die after his remaining vitality is used up. However, his vitality is not used up yet, so he can only continue to suffer a lot of pain. It won't help him at all." Hua Fengwen suddenly turned around and glared at Jun Xia. "Jun Xia, it's fine if you killed him directly, but why did you add so much Xian Qi to prolong his life and make him beg for death? You despicable villain, you're really a bastard." The expressions on the faces of the 4 venerable ones changed. Their question was answered, but the answer was so cruel. Jun Moxie's thunderous kicks were mixed with a lot of vitality when he attacked Lu Qiu. Even if this person was beaten to death 100 times, he wouldn't die immediately. As long as the vitality was not exhausted, it would continue to protect Lu Qiu's vital functions, so that he could continue to live and stay conscious. But there was no chance for him to survive. At first glance, this sentence seemed to be quite contradictory, but in fact, it was an extremely vicious way to punish people. "I want you to die, but I don't want you to die quickly. Even if you're already dead, I want you to experience the most painful torture in this world before you die. Why are you guys like this? Shouldn't you be thanking me? He should have died on the spot with his injuries. But this young master is giving you face, in addition to the fact that I've always been very soft-hearted and kind, so I generously gave him some time to make arrangements for his funeral. This is such a humane way of doing things. I've already done that, but you're still scolding me so viciously. Is it really difficult to be a good person?" Jun Xia chuckled and said, "Forget it, I won't mind. I've already said that I'm used to doing good deeds, and I'm born with a good heart. I've always taken the safety of the continent as my responsibility, and I've always had the world's people in my heart. It's understandable that narrow-minded people like you don't understand," Jun Moxie said kindly. "Amitba, good. Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. Shameless. Hua Fengwen, Chu Wuqing, and the rest trembled in anger. On the other side, Lu Qiu suddenly screamed in a hoarse voice, as if his soul was struggling in pain, Chu Wuqing. Chu Wuqing's body shook. He turned to look at him with a complicated expression. Kill me. Lu Qiu looked at Jun Moxie with hatred, and begged Chu Wuqing, kill me. Please. His elixir field was destroyed, his Xian Qi was destroyed, and he had to endure unbearable pain. He did not even have the strength to commit suicide. Chu Wuqing's face trembled. He raised his right hand, and a beautiful saber light flashed across the sky and pierced into Lu Qiu's chest. Then, a bright red light burst out. Thank you. Lu Qiu thanked him weakly. Although his voice was low, it was full of relief. He suddenly stared at Jun Moxie and screamed with all his remaining strength, Jun Moxie. Wait for me. Tonight. I'll come for you as a ghost. Wait for me. His screams pierced through the sky. Lu Qiu was already motionless. His ugly face was still emitting hatred, and his eyes were still staring at Jun Moxie, emitting a faint light that belonged to hell. The cold wind howled, and Lu Qiu's last sentence echoed in the wind. It was as if the gates of hell were about to open, and thousands of ghosts were about to come out. Everyone who heard this curse before death felt a chill run down their spines, and cold sweat dripped down their backs. So what if you're going to die? Why the fuck are you doing this? Ghost? I'm so scared. Jun Moxie shrunk his neck. Chapter 679. Why go through so much trouble? How long do we have to wait? Isn't it easier to solve it now? Do you think that by blocking my way, you can just leave after saying a few words? Whatever you think, all the good things are yours. Since you're in my way, you have to pay the price. And I want the price now. Jun Moxie smiled, raised his right hand and shouted, kill them all. Leave none alive. Today, this place will be the burial place of the 6 venerable ones. He finally issued this resolute order. The killing intent had been accumulated and could no longer be eliminated. You want to kill me? Then I'll kill you all. Even if I can't kill all of you, I'll make sure you lose a lot of combat power. An earth-shattering, mountain-shattering roar rang out. Big Bear and the other 500 muscular men suddenly rushed over from all directions. The sky suddenly darkened, and hundreds of flying Xian beasts soared into the sky, ready to attack at any time. Everyone then realized that the Xian beasts and beast kings were attacking from all directions at the same time. At the same time, they even sealed off the sky, leaving no gap for them to break through. After Jun Moxie made up his mind, he put his hands behind his back and made a very subtle gesture to Third Master Jun Wui. Jun Wui understood tacitly. So, he quickly arranged the most meticulous attack formation in accordance with the positions of the 5 opponents. The Xian beasts received the order and quietly moved to outflank the 5 venerable ones. In just a moment, they had completely surrounded the 5 venerable ones. Previously, they were just watching from the side. Hua Fengwen and the others had all their attention on Jun and Mei, so they didn't feel anything was wrong. Moreover, they were too confident in their own abilities. They thought that even if they couldn't win, they could always escape. They didn't expect that the Xian beasts, who only knew how to attack fiercely, also knew how to change their formation. They were surrounded in one fell swoop. Although the group of Xian beasts didn't know the way of battle formations, Jun Wui was a great expert in this field. In the current world, he could at least be ranked among the top 3 experts in this field. This was a small test of his skill, so how could it be ordinary? This arrangement could be said to be extremely meticulous. At the same time, the offensive power of the formation was also extremely sharp. Bear King and Bear Mountain led 7 strong men to attack heartless Venerable Du Ju. The Tiger King, Earthcracker, and 7 other 2-meter-tall men were engaged in a fierce battle against the Venerable Compassionate Jin Sibe. The Lion King, Carefree Rock, led 7 transformed lions to fight against the Venerable of the Broken Sword, Hua Fengwen. The Monkey King, Ho Chi, led his 11 brothers to attack Chu Wuqing. The Crane King, Long Crane, led his 7 brothers to attack the Venerable of the Horizon, Shao Tianya. The Eagle King, the Condor King, led many stronger flying Xian beasts to line up in the sky. Whenever one side was in danger, he would give the order and a few level 9 flying Xian beasts would attack like sharp arrows. The Qian Sun Serpent Queen led the Xian beasts on the ground who didn't participate in the battle to watch the battle. Whenever there was a disadvantage, she would wave her hand and a few of them would immediately go up to help. The formation of the 2 armies was unusually neat and strong. However, each time they attacked, there would never be more than 20 people. This was because if there were too many people, they wouldn't be able to use their full strength. Instead, it would hinder their movements. Once the battle stabilized after the attack, they would immediately retreat. The next time they attacked, it would be another group of Xian beasts. Jun Wui stood on the shoulder of a big black bear that had returned to its original form. He held a small red flag in his hand. Every time he waved the flag, the formation would change from time to time. With the blood uniform general's rich experience in battle formations, it would be an exaggeration to say that he was using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. It was like using a big knife to chop an ant. Mei Xuan was helping from the side, but she didn't personally take action. His gaze was deep as he watched with rapt attention. Suddenly, Jun Wui waved the little flag. The Qian Sun Serpent Queen let out a roar and led all the Xian beasts under her command to form a neat team. They rushed out like a flood. After a series of attacks, they actually broke up the chaotic battle between the 5 sides and turned it into 5 small battles. This time, the attack was extremely ingenious. It could be said that it was just right, separating all 5 of them. Jun Wui waved the little flag again and again. The Snake King gave another order. The pride of lions, tigers, leopards, monkeys, and bears immediately split up and surrounded the battle circle that their respective kings were participating in. Then, they launched another round of attacks, attacking to their heart's content. Once the battle began, it would be earth-shattering. But at this time, the 5 venerables were fighting on their own and were powerless to reverse the situation. Not only was it impossible to win, even if they wanted to retreat unscathed, it had become a difficult task. Jun Moxie, you little thief, you're really shameless. If you have the guts, fight me one-on-one. Zhen Sibei roared angrily, his palms flying as he fought the tigers. He and Du Ju could be considered the 2 people in the most difficult situation. This was because, in the hands of the Bear King and the Tiger King, they each had a divine weapon that exceeded their expectations. In a battle like this, if the side with the advantage in numbers had such a peerless divine weapon, the outcome of the battle could be imagined. In a moment of carelessness, Zhen Sibei's body was pierced by a sword. Blood flowed profusely, and his battle strength was greatly reduced. The Tiger King, Earthcracker, laughed maniacally. He did not personally take action, but only ordered the tigers to continue attacking. He held the divine weapon in his hand and watched from the side, accumulating power to attack. This was truly a tiger watching its prey. In this way, Zhen Sibei had to work even harder. He had to put more than half of his attention on the big boss with the divine weapon. The situation was even worse. I'm shameless. Oh my God, I've been waiting for this sentence. I've waited too long for this. So it turns out that we've always been scolding you 3 holy lands for being shameless. At that time, I was thinking, when would I be able to let you scold me for being shameless? Now that I've finally heard it, I finally understand, so it turns out that being scolded as shameless is such a pleasurable thing. Feeling good is one thing, but I still have to ask you a question. You're a venerable, but you actually want to fight with a mere junior like me alone? Who's the more shameless one here? Jun Mo Xia laughed loudly and taunted. Venerable Mei, what kind of man are you to bully someone with numbers? You are also a venerable. Do you have the guts to fight me alone? The Venerable of the Broken Sword, Hua Fengwen, flew up with a dazzling sword radiance around him. He temporarily escaped the attack range of the Lion King and the group of lions. However, Junwei waved his little flag and 3 black eagles descended from above. Their sharp claws, sharp beaks, and iron-like wings attacked at the same time. Hua Fengwen's Xian Qi was almost used up. Faced with this attack from the sky, he was in a difficult situation. From the ground to the sky, he did not even have time to rest. He did not even have time to catch his breath. He might as well be on the ground. At least he had time to catch his breath, but he did not have time to do so now. One-on-one. Venerable Hua, you are wrong. There are so many of us. Aren't we fighting one-on-one with you? Don't tell me you want to gang up on the 2 of us with the strength of 6 people? That's not right. That scoundrel Venerable was killed by your own people, so there's only 5 of you left. But even if there's only 5 of you, you're still ganging up on me. Jun Imo Xie said with a strange smile. I have to say, you are too cruel. You even killed your own people. *T. This is not a one-on-one fight. The Venerable of the Broken Sword, Hua Fengwen, tried his best to resist the crazy attacks of the Black Eagles. Now, he had switched to the other 3 eagles. His body gradually fell back into the encirclement of the lions. On the ground, the Lion King had already pounced on him. The sharp wind from his palm was about to hit his back. Why isn't this a one-on-one fight? I saw it clearly. The Lion King was fighting you one-on-one. His brothers were fighting you one-on-one too. But you were not satisfied. You jumped up and fought with your brothers in the sky again. Venerable Hua, you are too much. How dare you bully the others? Jun Moxie suddenly looked angry. I can't tolerate your shamelessness. Hua Fengwen was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. No matter how shameless a person was, there must be a limit. But when it came to Jun Moxie, there was no limit. What kind of person is he? However, while the 5 venerable lords were being attacked and fighting hard, none of them dared to use their full strength to kill. This was the thing that was truly depressing, to the point that smoke was rising from his heart. Because Venerable Mei had not made his move yet. Jun Moxie had not made his move either. The 2 of them were the biggest threats in the entire battle. It would be fine if the battle continued to be a stalemate. However, if any of the 5 venerable lords made a big move and caused casualties to the Xian beasts, it was almost foreseeable that Mei Shuyan would attack crazily at that moment. At that time, the venerable lord would have Xian beasts on the ground and enemies in the sky. Coupled with Venerable Mei, who was much more powerful than her, and the fact that she had just made a big move and her Xian energy was depleted, a tragedy was inevitable. That was where the greatest danger lay. However, it was not a solution to drag on like this. Were they really going to die of exhaustion in the end? If they dragged on like this, they would be safe for the time being, but it was not a long-term solution. Their enemies were strong and well-trained. They might all die of exhaustion while their enemies were still alive. Therefore, going all out was a bad idea, and delaying was also a bad idea. At this moment, the 4 venerables were cursing Zhen Ci Bei in their hearts. What kind of stupid idea did he come up with? He dragged us here to demonstrate his power before everyone was here. Now, not only did he fail to intimidate them, but he also caused them to be intimidated. Not only did he lose a venerable, he also fell into a situation where he could not advance or retreat. This is really tragic. In this situation, even if they used the whistle to summon some of their subordinates, it would only add a few more deaths. It was useless to have fewer people. Their enemies were too strong. Jun Moxie and Mei Shuyan were watching the changes in the battlefield closely, ready to respond at any time. They both knew that the 5 venerable lords were extremely powerful and were not easy to deal with. Their enemies seemed to be trapped, but it was only a temporary phenomenon. They would definitely not be in a stalemate for long. They just did not have a good idea and were thinking of a countermeasure. With the strength of these 5 people, it was not difficult for them to escape. Chapter 680. Jun Wui's face was solemn, and he commanded calmly. The Xian beasts, who had always been like loose sand, had unexpectedly become a clear-cut weapon in just a day and a half's time. Jun Wui's greatest brilliance was that he didn't let the Xian beasts attack together in a chaotic manner. Not only did he divide them into waves, but he also let the Xian beasts of the same species unite and attack together. This way, they all understood each other's fighting style, and their companions' weaknesses were their own weaknesses. Everyone knew themselves and their enemies, and they cooperated with each other. Jun Wui had thought about this kind of tactic when he was fighting the Xian beasts in Tiannan. How good would it be if he could only command such a troop one day? At that time, the Xian beasts had attacked in a chaotic manner, and Jun Wui had seen the weakness of the Xian beasts at that time. Now that this team was really in his hands, once those advantages were integrated, they were instantly magnified countless times. Even their own weaknesses were eliminated as much as possible. Their fighting strength had increased by more than 10 times. Under any circumstances, one must consider a reasonable battle strategy. This was the success of a general who had fought in hundreds of battles. And the third master Jun Wui had succeeded in doing this. Therefore, he had been invincible in the previous battles. Therefore, he had been able to prepare for today's battle even though he had been in such a hurry. Otherwise, even if Jun Moxie had such an idea, and Jun Wui had carried it out, it would only have been empty talk. But now, he had trapped the 5 venerables in an impossible situation, and forced them into an unprecedentedly bitter battle. Regardless of the outcome of this battle, Jun Wui's tactic was exceptionally successful. There was absolutely no flaw. Success was never a fluke. A fluke's success was destined not to last long. Even Mei Xuyan, who was watching from the side, felt ashamed of her inferiority. Jun Wui's ability to command was truly a genius. Most importantly, how did he manage to let Bear Mountain and the others successfully outflank the 5 venerable ones without making a sound? Furthermore, the encirclement was so tight. Mei Xuyan could not figure out the answer to this question. It should be known that once these fellows received the order to prepare for battle, each of them would be more excited than the other. How could the 5 venerable ones' divine senses not notice such a commotion? But now, the actual situation was that such an incomprehensible situation had appeared. Big Bear, Earthcracker, and the others had soundlessly outflanked them in such a manner that no one had noticed. This was simply unimaginable. It was only after the battle, when Mei Xuyan humbly asked him for advice, that he finally understood. It turned out that the Beast Kings were huddled together to watch the battle. Each and every one of them was impatient, pushing each other with their shoulders and buttocks, baring their teeth at each other. After receiving Jun Moxie's hint, Jun Wui had an idea and said, "It's naturally inconvenient for everyone to huddle together. But why must everyone huddle together on this side? Isn't there another 3 sides? It doesn't matter which side we look at. Just go and look for it on your own. Just be careful, don't disturb the battle, or you'll lose your treasure." This was a very simple suggestion, and the Beast Kings, who had wanted to watch the show, dispersed one by one. Because they wanted to see more clearly, they all chose the closest and most suitable spot for their eyes. However, when it came to battle, it was also the best spot to attack. As a result, it led to an awkward situation for the 5 venerable ones. After knowing this, Mei Xuyan admired Jun Wui from the bottom of her heart, as expected of the blood-cloaked general. With just one sentence, countless Xian beasts automatically fell into his trap, and the 5 venerable ones fell into an awkward situation that they had never encountered before. Just this treachery alone was not something an ordinary person could achieve. The battle was changing subtly, becoming more and more intense. But what gave the 5 venerable ones the most pressure was not the frenzied attacks of the Beast Kings, but from another person. This person did not participate in the battle from the beginning to the end, but his shouting and wrangling were as annoying as a fly. The 5 venerable ones had the urge to strangle him to death, then trample him into meat paste, then resurrect him, then trample him into meat paste again, and repeat the process 10,000 times. This person who received such a supreme honor was naturally Jun Moxie, Jun Dashao. This guy was watching the battle and commanding at the same time. His hands were dancing, his eyebrows were dancing, and his spittle was flying everywhere. His words made the 5 venerable ones furious. Bear Mountain, fuck you. To deal with Du Ju, you should use your bare paw to grab his crotch. What's the use of always hitting his shoulders? The key is to hit his vital parts. Hitting his crotch is the way to go. Isn't he called Du Ju? Cut off his back and let him live up to his name. Yes, hit his but like you hit your son. Break his chrysanthemum. Even if you can't beat him to death, you should embarrass him to death. Let him die. Die my A**s. Kill both his front and back. Bucho sure, that's a good punch. Hit the hypocrite Hua Fengwen's eyes. Yes. Hit him like a panda first, then he will look like a Xian beast, fuck. Aim at his eyes, idiot. You're asking for trouble by hitting his face. He is so thick-skinned. Be careful, or you'll die from the recoil. Don't you know that he may have cultivated the legendary Golden Mask and Iron Mask skin? Crane third, you have to change your tactics. That's the World's Edge Venerable. Do you know what the World's Edge is? That's the edge of the sky. This means that the World's Edge Venerable will run away when he sees that the situation is not right. Yes. He's a guy who is ready to run away at any time. Chu Wu Qing, have fun fighting one-on-one. Ha ha ha, don't be anxious. There will be more people fighting one-on-one with you. You'll be satisfied. One-on-one means that you're fighting all of us, right? This is the truth. And it's the truth of the 3 holy lands. Shamelessness is the true meaning of fighting one-on-one. Shaw! Don't stare at me. Pay attention to your defense, idiot. Why are you looking at me when you're fighting? Are you trying to show that your eyes are big, idiot? Are you itching for a beating? You're really fucking shameless. Zhen Sibei, look at your old face. Fuck your grandpa, you're already like an eggplant, and you're still stretching your legs and curling up your feet to fight. I bet that if a fly were to fly on your face, you'd be able to kill it immediately. It's too fucking ugly. It's like a weathered eggplant being cooked and air-dried. It's too disgusting. I don't object to you fighting, but you should at least tidy up your appearance, right? Running out with such an ugly face. Damn it, even the Xian beasts feel disgusted when they see you. Look, are you trembling? Are you blushing? Can't you admit that you're old? Are you angry, old man? I just want to piss you off to death. Piss you off to death. He. Shameless. 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 Zhen Sibei was so angry that his whole body was trembling. His face was red as he scolded furiously. He felt that his stomach was about to explode. Shameless. Bastard. You're the shameless one. Your whole family is shameless. All 18 generations of your ancestors are shameless. Jun Moxie jumped up and scolded furiously. Then, he laughed weirdly. You still have the nerve to say that others are shameless. You're just an old lady leaning against the wall to eat porridge. Don't you understand? Today, I'll teach you a lesson. The so-called old lady leaning against the wall to eat porridge is despicable, shameless, and obscene. What? Are you really angry? You'd better focus on the fight. Be good, I'm doing this for your own good. Don't be distracted during the fight. *T. I told you not to be distracted. Look, you've suffered a loss, haven't you? You've even gotten a kick on your butt. Waha. If you don't listen to your elders, you'll suffer a loss, grandson. It had to be said that this fellow's mouth was really too poisonous. It was like a machine gun that never stopped. Mei Shuiyan felt tired for him as she listened to him. However, this brat was actually enjoying it and never got tired of it. He talked non-stop and used endless filthy words. It was like a swarm of flies circling the ears of the 5 venerable ones, buzzing and causing them to be annoyed. They were already remorseful and angry about Lu Qiu's death. Now that they were surrounded, they felt pressured, and Mei Shuiyan was glaring at them like a tiger watching its prey. Now that they were being nagged by this brat, they were so annoyed that their heads were about to explode. Mei Shuiyan felt embarrassed. Xia, stop scolding. It's beneath your dignity. Besides, it's too unpleasant. June Moxie looked at her in surprise. What? Do you really think I'm so bored to practice my mouth? Or do you really think the current formation is enough to trap them? The 5 of them were venerable realm experts. They're just waiting for an opportunity or thinking of a countermeasure. Once they have the chance, they'll run away instantly. Don't you think what I'm doing is very effective? Look, these old men are fuming with anger. Even the gods can't think of a countermeasure in this situation. Besides, this is a good opportunity for us. I'm fighting. Do you understand, silly girl? June Moxie cackled. Today, I'll show you that my mouth can also kill, and it can even kill venerable ones. Venerable ones who are at the same level as you. June Moxie even attacked Mei Shuiyan along the way. Mei Shuiyan was confused by his fallacious reasoning, and then she was so angry at his last sentence that her stomach hurt. She rolled her eyes at him and turned her head away angrily. Even Mei Shuiyan, who did not attack him directly, was angered to this extent, let alone the 5 venerable ones. Mei Shuiyan turned her head and realized that what this brat said seemed to be very reasonable. She looked at the 5 venerable ones, whose eyes were almost spewing fire. In this situation, not to mention thinking of a countermeasure, they couldn't even fight normally. Especially Zhen Sibei, who was the most injured. He was so angry that his hands and feet were trembling. His white beard was flying, and his moves were a little messy. As June Moxie successfully aroused the anger of the 5 venerable ones, the situation in the field became even more fiery. Everyone was fighting crazily, and the sound of fists and feet hitting flesh resounded. Xian beasts had thick skin and were not afraid of beatings, and the venerable ones had copper skin and iron bones. Both sides were getting more and more angry, and everyone had injuries on their bodies. Earthcracker, don't you know how to beat a dog when it's down? Can't you see that Zhen Sibei is already so angry that he can't think properly? Hurry up and hit him. Hit him hard. Yes, stab his crotch, pierce his chrysanthemum, and hit his stomach with 2 punches, kick his butt, smash his chest, and hit his head until he has a concussion. That feels good, ha ha ha. Zhen Sibei, are you happy? Who asked you to be arrogant? Arrogant your mother. That earthquake and landslide didn't kill you back then, but today, I'm going to anger you to death. Even if I don't anger you to death, I'll disgust you to death. Chapter 681. June Moxie saw that Zhen Sibei had the most intense reaction among the 5 venerables. So, he simply concentrated all his firepower and launched a concentrated attack on him. After he finished his rhyme, everyone around him cheered at the same time. Brother-in-law. What a good poem. What a great literary talent. Then, there was a burst of crazy laughter. June Moxie smiled and cupped his fists in front of him. His face was full of pride. You're overpraising me, you're overpraising me, Zhen Sibei screamed. He was so angry that his eyes turned blue. He felt his chest swelling up more and more. It was about to explode. A mouthful of blood rushed to his throat, but he swallowed it back. He knew that his opponent's purpose was to provoke him as much as possible. But, he couldn't restrain his anger. His face had already turned purple from anger. His moves were getting more and more chaotic. Earthcracker's sword pierced his thigh with a swoosh. Zhen Sibei roared in pain. His Xian Qi suddenly erupted from his body. His sword flew out with a swoosh. It turned into a stream of light and pierced Jun Wui's back, giving him a fright. Blood spurted out from Zhenxibei's thigh. The Xian beasts that were besieging him were scattered by his powerful Xian qi. Then, they surrounded him again. They gritted their teeth and endured his attacks. Then, they launched a crazy counterattack. Earthcracker finally succeeded in landing 7 or 8 heavy punches on Zhenxibei's body. A huge tiger behind Zhenxibei took advantage of the situation and ruthlessly kicked his buttocks. Zhenxibei looked up to the sky and roared in anger. He staggered and staggered. His eyes were spitting fire. But the attacks from all around continued to land on his body. This pitiful venerable compassionate had lived like a prince for more than 200 years. All he heard on a daily basis was flattery and flattery. Who would dare to scold him? No one even dared to glare at him. Who would have thought that he would be scolded to his face today? He could directly make up for the deficit of more than 200 years in this area, and he would even have a huge surplus. The intense change in his emotions directly caused his mind to sink into chaos. He actually fell into an absolute disadvantage in this battle where he definitely wouldn't be at a disadvantage. Suddenly, a long and drawn-out howl resounded from the battlefield, and it was continuous and imposing. The volume of this roar wasn't very high, but it managed to suppress Jun Imo Xie's nonsense. Moreover, the roar was extremely clear, and had a calming effect on one's mind. Du Ju, Zhenxibei, and the rest felt their heads clear, and they instantly woke up. Jun Moxie's expression changed. He looked up and saw that it was the world's edge venerable, Shao Tianya, who was whistling with a solemn expression. Under the attacks of Jun Moxie's immoral methods, the 5 venerable lords became more and more flustered. Some of them were so angry that their hands and feet turned cold. However, the Xian beasts became more and more energetic as they fought. They laughed wildly as they fought, and their auras rose to the peak. As time went by, the 5 venerable lords' situation became worse and worse. The world's edge venerable could clearly sense Jun Moxie's sinister intentions, and he could not wait any longer and actually let out the soul-calming melody. Jun Moxie was instantly angered to the point that his eyes and mouth slanted. It seemed like he was talking nonsense just now, but as his words slowly aroused their anger, Jun Moxie had actually secretly used the soul-calming technique. Towards the end, every word he said had a strong hypnotic effect. He was about to succeed, and Zhenxibei, who was focused on him, would probably be angered to death. However, he did not expect Shao Tianya to interfere at the most crucial moment. How could he not be angry when the prey that was about to be in his mouth flew away? However, even though he was angry, Jun Dashao did not seem to be able to do anything about it. The other party had already woken up and was guarding his mind. No matter how much he scolded him, it would have no effect. Jun Dashao angrily scolded, "Old B****, did someone in your family die? What the fuck are you yelling for? Jun Moxie, stop wasting your time. Your sinister intentions have already been exposed by my soul-calming melody. If you continue, you will only embarrass yourself and embarrass yourself." Shao Tianya Lengleng's voice could be heard. It sounded like she still had some energy left. Du Ju, Zhenxibei, Chu Wuqing, Hua Fengwen, use all your strength and rush towards the north. I will be in charge of receiving you. Shao Tianya's shout caused the ground to tremble. Mei Shuyan frowned, and her eyes lit up in surprise. Shao Tianya, I didn't know that you had hidden your strength so well. You have actually reached the level 3 venerable, but you were still a level 2 venerable for so many years. Shao Tianya Lengleng said, Venerable Mei, you are not the only one in the world who can break through. The wandering venerable and the venerable of life and death are about to arrive. Venerable Mei Hun, you better think about your own life. Let's go. Shao Tianya roared and suddenly opened his arms. Then, he shook his shoulders and a strong white Xian qi exploded from his body. It was as violent as an atomic bomb exploding in the air. Long Crane and the others who were surrounding him screamed as they felt their bodies being bounced back by an irresistible force. Shao Tianya was like a shooting star. His aura was fully unleashed, and he was like an unstoppable ship, breaking through the waves of Xian beasts and heading towards the north. Xiao Qianya's cultivation was outstanding. The reason why he was willing to be trapped here was because he wanted to make use of his strength to catch his opponents off guard. He was only pretending to be courteous because he wanted to gain something. If he could sneak an attack on Mei Xueyan, that would be his ultimate plan. That was why he had never thought of retreating from the start. But now, he had no choice but to give up on that idea. Moreover, he was forced to reveal his true strength. That's because the Xian beasts that used to be in a state of disunity had turned into an iron-like formation under Jun Wuyi's command. In fact, it was the most solid and stable iron-like formation. If they continued to hold on, one of the 5 of them would die here. Lu Qiu, the rogue venerable, had already died. It was already a big loss. If a few more of them died, it would be a huge loss. Therefore, he made a prompt decision to break out of the encirclement with all his might. Once the power of a level 3 venerable was unleashed, it was as easy as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. A path was created instantly. Snake King tried to stop him, but he was blown away by the impact of his palm and sword. At the same time, the 4 venerables shouted in unison. Their swords filled the sky as they dashed towards Xiao Qianya. Jun Wuyi's expression changed. He waved the little flag in front of him. Stop them with all your might. This was the strongest attack that Jun Wuyi had planned. It was also the only tactic that required sacrifice. If the 5 of them left, it would be like releasing a tiger back to the mountain. Therefore, even if there were sacrifices, they had to stay here. Mei Xueyan shouted, "Where are you going?" She flashed and disappeared. When she reappeared, she was already in front of Xiao Qianya. Her white palm was like a blooming lotus. White smoke came out of her hand, and the edge of her palm was emitting green smoke because of the friction with the air. Xiao Qianya roared and faced the attack with all his might. His fists were like raging dragons. He didn't dodge, but fought the attack head-on. If he couldn't defeat Mei Xueyan head-on, he wouldn't be able to get out of here alive. Therefore, Xiao Qianya attacked with all his might. With a loud bang, their palms and fists collided. An extremely strong airflow burst out from the 2 of them, and everyone around them was thrown off their feet. Mei Xueyan grunted and her white dress fluttered in the wind. She retreated to the side, and her face turned pale and red. Xiao Qianya, on the other hand, didn't move at all. His face was strangely red, and he continued to fly forward. His fists were like raging dragons coming out of the sea, and like the hammers of the thunder god, they continued to smash towards Mei Xueyan. Looking at the situation, it seemed like Mei Xueyan was at a disadvantage. Actually, Mei Xueyan had just broken through to the 3rd level, but Xiao Qianya hadn't reached the 3rd level for long either. Their skills were about the same, and Mei Xueyan was slightly stronger than Mei Xueyan. After all, Mei Xueyan was a mystical beast, and her body was much stronger than a human's. During the collision just now, Mei Xueyan thought that she had a high chance of winning, so she used the momentum to retreat. It was the best choice to reduce the impact and avoid getting injured. However, Xiao Qianya wanted to break out of the encirclement, so he didn't retreat at all. He even pressed forward with all his might. It seemed like he had the upper hand, but he knew that he was suffering. His internal organs were already injured. But this was the only way he could defeat Mei Xueyan. This was because he knew that Mei Xueyan was the main force in this operation. She would definitely not dare to fight with him at this time and cause internal injuries. Therefore, this was Mei Xueyan's biggest concern, and it was also Xiao Qianya's best chance. At this moment, the 4 honorable martial artists had gathered behind Xiao Qianya. Behind them, 5 or 6 mystical beasts were severely injured. The power of the honorable martial artists was too great. Even though the mystical beasts had super strong bodies, they couldn't withstand it. However, this result wasn't without a price. Du Ju was already bleeding from the corner of his mouth. Zhen Sibei's face was ferocious, and blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth. It was obvious that they had suffered internal injuries. Chu Wuqing was expressionless, but his face was pale. There was a large blood stain on his shoulder. The 5 honorable martial artists didn't expect that they would be forced into such a state just because they wanted to escape. It was rare for them to be in such a tragic situation. It was the only one of its kind. Another explosion. Mei Shuyan took 2 steps back, and a dazzling sword light lit up. It was the honorable martial artist of the broken sword, Hua Fengwen, who had become one with his sword, rushed towards Mei Shuyan after Xiao Tianya. Don't stop them by force, let them pass. Jun Moxie's voice sounded. Mei Shuyan's body flashed, and Hua Fengwen dashed past her without any resistance. He drew a bright meteor on the snowy ground and was the first to break out of the encirclement. Then, Xiao Tianya rushed past, and the other 3 followed closely behind. Jun Wui's impregnable formation was finally broken through. The Beast Kings screamed and rushed over without any regard for their lives. Just as they broke through the encirclement, a huge crater appeared between Xiao Tianya and Chu Wuqing, who was behind him. The crater was more than 100 feet wide, and it was about 7 to 8 feet deep. Chapter 682. The Power of Earth. Jun Moxie's power of the 5 elements was finally unleashed at this critical moment. If such a huge pit had appeared on any other day, even if it was 10 times bigger, the few of them would have crossed it without blinking an eye. But now that they were panicking and trying to escape, it became a great killing weapon. Especially since Xiao Tianya had already crossed it without any risk, Chu Wuqing and the rest of them could easily cross it. But right at this moment, a huge pit appeared. Chu Wuqing, Du Ju, and Zhen Sibei did not expect a pit to appear in such a place. Caught off guard, the 3 of them fell into the pit. Xiao Tianya, who was in front, roared and stopped. With a wave of his right hand, he untied his belt. With a wave of his right hand, it turned into a long strip of cloth and wrapped around Chu Wuqing's body. With a pull, Chu Wuqing flew out slowly. Then, a large group of Xian beasts separated the 2 of them from the pit. The other 2, Du Ju and Zhen Sibei, had not even reached the bottom of the pit when they raised their qi and rushed up. However, they were met with a loud roar as Heiya's Xian beast's huge body smashed down without any regard for its own safety. The 2 of them were in midair and were about to be smashed into the ground. Both of them knew that if they were smashed down, with Mei Shuyan watching them from above, there was no way they could survive. Therefore, they had to rush out before they were smashed down. At this moment, Du Ju was indeed Du Ju. He roared, "You are injured, carry me up. I will avenge you." Du Ju's decisiveness allowed him to make the best decision in an instant. At this moment, it was obviously impossible for the 2 of them to leave together. Since only one of them could leave, then they would leave with someone who still had some strength left. Zhen Sibei was already injured in many places, both internal and external. He was the weakest among the 5 Xian beasts. Even if they went up, they might not be able to leave. Zhen Sibei laughed sorrowfully and said, "Good." He was also a decisive person. Making a prompt decision, he suddenly used all the profound qi in his body to stop the upward momentum of his body. The instant Du Ju's body passed him, he suddenly used all his strength to push Du Ju's feet. Du Ju's body shot out like a sharp sword, his speed suddenly doubled. On the other hand, Zhen Sibei's body was falling rapidly due to the counterforce. He roared with all his might, "Kill Jun Moxie for me." Just as he finished shouting, his body had already been smashed into the ground by the fists and kicks of countless Xian beasts. Zhen Sibei also knew this situation, so he decisively chose to help Du Ju. If the 2 of them were to fight again, then neither of them would be able to leave. They were both venerable ones and had lived for hundreds of years. They had seen through life and death. Moreover, what Du Ju said was the truth. Therefore, Zhen Sibei chose to sacrifice himself without hesitation. The 2 of them, one in the elusive land of immortals and the other in the supreme golden city, had been fighting each other for half of their lives. But at this moment, at the critical juncture of life and death, They both chose to cooperate wholeheartedly. Zhen Sibei did not even care about his own life and successfully sent Du Ju out. If it was anyone else, they would have been scared out of their wits. But Zhen Sibei, at this moment, sacrificed his own life to help his comrade. After all, Venerable Ones still had a demeanor that was far superior to ordinary experts. Du Ju let out a shrill howl as he borrowed Zhen Sibei's strength to recover his qi and shoot through the air. Above his head, a beast king that had just taken human form had its body pierced through by him, creating a huge hole in its body. The beast king's innards flew through the air with a head full of blood. "I will definitely avenge you," Du Ju shouted. At this moment, he was still running like lightning. Xiao Tianye and Chu Wuqing were right in front of him. They were about to be safe. "Stay! Du Ju!" Mei Xuan roared angrily and appeared behind him like a bolt of lightning. She slashed out with her palm, but Du Ju did not dodge or evade. Instead, he continued running with all his might. Mei Xuan's palm strike landed, and with a loud bang, Du Ju spat out a mouthful of blood into the air. However, he managed to turn the force of the attack into a new source of motivation. Even though his internal injuries worsened, he borrowed the momentum of this palm strike to increase his speed even further. "Be careful behind you." Xiao Tianye turned around and slammed his palms towards the flying Xian beasts above Du Ju's head as he roared. Du Ju was startled upon hearing this, and he twisted his body forcefully. With a "cheat" sound, he felt a cold sensation as a sword pierced through his shoulder, protruding out from his shoulder blade. The tip of the sword flickered lightly, and as Du Ju continued to advance, the sword instantly retracted from his body. Du Ju howled madly as he spat out another mouthful of blood. His body was already riddled with injuries. Behind him, Jun Moxie appeared in the air with his sword. His face was full of pity. In a flash, he disappeared again. He had activated the yin-yang escape art for this sword strike, and he had used the man and sword as one within the yin-yang escape art. However, with Xiao Tianye's warning, he had failed at the last step. The sword that should have pierced Du Ju's back had only pierced his shoulder. It was a great pity that he couldn't kill Du Ju on the spot. Before the true qi on the sword could explode, Du Ju had already shaken it off with his top speed. However, this sword was enough to make Du Ju suffer. It pierced through his shoulder blade. Xiao Tianye's body was shining with white light and steam was coming out of his head. His strong Xian qi was obviously at its peak. Normal Xian beasts couldn't hurt him at all. They couldn't even get close to him. He reached out one hand and was ready to help Du Ju. Because he could tell that Du Ju was at the end of his rope. If he didn't help him, he might not be able to escape. A shadow flashed behind Du Ju and the sword light flashed. Xiao Tianye was furious. He shouted, "How dare you, you scoundrel!" He sent out a palm strike with all his strength. The sword light disappeared and the shadow disappeared. However, a white palm appeared out of nowhere and hit Du Ju's back. Jun Moxie. He appeared again and attacked. He attacked twice and caused Du Ju to be seriously injured twice. Du Ju let out another miserable groan as blood spurted out from his nose and mouth. Unable to hold on any longer, his body suddenly fell from the sky like a kite with a broken string. Xiao Tianye rushed over at this time and picked him up, hugging him tightly in his arms. His face was full of grief and indignation as he shouted, "Go!" Together with Chu Wuqing, the two of them ran forward without any hesitation. "Where's Zhen Sibei?" Chu Wuqing asked anxiously. "He's finished. In order to save me." Du Ju, who was on the verge of death in Xiao Tianye's arms, had a tear in his eye. After saying this, he fainted. With internal and external injuries, Du Ju was on the verge of death. Chu Wuqing roared in anger. He wanted to turn around and fight, but he was pulled back by Xiao Tianye. At this moment, a black object flew towards them. It was Bear Mountain who kicked Lu Qiu's head and scolded, "Fuck you." The kick was so powerful that Lu Qiu's head was separated from his body. It flew far away like a meteor hammer. Chu Wuqing roared in grief and indignation. He caught the head and sped up with Xiao Tianya, disappearing into the snowstorm. Before they disappeared, they saw Xiao Tianya stagger and spit out a mouthful of blood on the ground. This level 3 venerable could no longer hold back the consequences of his collision with Mei Shuyan, and he spat out blood. He had suffered a great loss in this battle. Seeing the two of them escape, the group of eagles chased after them. Jun Wui waved his flag. Mei Shuyan saw this and let out a long whistle. Eagle King quickly retreated. Don't chase after a desperate enemy. If we continue, we might be ambushed by their men. Jun Wui said calmly and sighed. It's a pity that 4 of them left. It's a pity that we won't get another chance like this again. After a loud explosion, 5 or 6 beast kings crawled out of the pit. The compassionate venerable, Zhen Sibei, was already buried in the pit. However, he fought back and self-destructed his Xian Qi. In the end, he killed 2 beast kings with him. The others were also badly injured. Only the physique of Xian beasts was better than that of humans. With the help of Jun Moxie's elixirs, they could recover. This is already a good result. 6 venerables, we killed 2, seriously injured 1, and lightly injured 2. This kind of achievement was already quite glorious. If you want to keep all of them here and not let any of them go, that's not realistic. Mei Shuyan looked mournful as she looked at the dead beast kings. It's a pity for our brothers. They had just transformed and didn't have the chance to appreciate the beauty of this world. They were buried in this world of ice and snow. Life and death are decreed by fate. Boss, don't be too sad. Bear Mountain and Long Crane comforted her with hoarse voices. Although they were comforting Mei Shuyan, their eyes were full of sorrow. Now that we've arrived at the Silver City, we've already suffered some losses. I wonder what would happen if we were to face the main forces of the 3 Holy Lands on the 2nd day of the 2nd month. Mei Shuyan's gaze was distant. She looked at the distant snowy peaks that were shrouded in clouds and mist as she softly said. Everyone fell silent. The mountain wind blew, chilling them to the bone. The night was especially dark. Mei Shuyan slowly walked out of her tent and looked at the moon in the sky. She did not speak for a long time. There was a rustling sound behind her, and Jun Imo Xia walked out. He did not say a word, and only stood beside Mei Shuyan. After a long time, Shuyan, what are you thinking about? Jun Moxie finally asked softly. Why do you look like you have a lot on your mind? I'm thinking about the big battle in 2 days. Mei Shuyan looked up at the sky. I'm thinking about the Tian Fa forest sending out an unprecedented number of people. Whether it's in terms of quantity or quality, this is the only time in 10,000 years that Tian Fa is not sent out for the war for seizing the heavens. But, how many people will be able to return safely after this battle? I'm also thinking about the big battle in 2 days. But my thoughts are slightly different from yours. Jun Moxie revealed a cruel smile and said, I'm thinking about how many people from the 3 Holy Lands will be lucky enough to escape after this battle. And how many strong people like Zhen Sibei and Lu Qiu will be buried here forever. Chapter 683. You won't understand. Mei Shuyan shook her head helplessly. The 3 Holy Lands never send out venerable or saint powerhouses. Even if they are in danger, as long as the safety of the Holy Lands is not threatened, they will never send out venerable or saint powerhouses. This is the principle. Because that is where the foundation of the 3 Holy Lands lies. This time, they sent out 6 venerable ones just to test the waters. Xiao Tianya even said that the wandering venerable and the venerable of life and death are coming. I believe that is not a bluff. These 2 people were at the peak of the 3rd level of the venerable 200 years ago. It is very likely that they are already at the 4th level of the venerable realm. If they haven't stepped into the 4th level, I might be able to deal with one of them. However, if they've really stepped into the 4th level, I'm definitely no match for them. Don't look like you don't care, you don't understand what a 4th level venerable means at all. Mei Shuiyan sighed and lowered her head, looking straight into Jun Imo Xie's eyes. A 4th level venerable means that they have a body that has been tempered by the lightning of heaven and earth. Their strength is absolutely beyond your imagination. If they really want to fight us, I'm afraid, this battle is going to be a disaster. You are at the beginning level of the 3rd level of the Venerable Realm? Jun Moxie asked after a moment of silence. Yes. So, if they really come, I don't have the confidence to handle them. I might not even be able to handle them one-on-one. Among all the people on our side, there is no one who can be a match for them. There is only one way to deal with them. Mei Shuiyan looked at Jun Imo Xie with a burning gaze. It's a Xian beast's self-destruction. And not just one. We need at least 4 of them to self-destruct at the same time to cause any damage to them. Mei Shuiyan sighed, other than this method, I really have no other way. Unless I can break through again in the shortest time possible. Otherwise, this battle will be fierce, and the losses we will face will be unimaginable. However, I have just broken through to level 3 not long ago and am only at the primary realm. It is impossible for me to break through again. With the current lineup of the 3 Holy Lands, they've basically shed all pretense of cordiality. Looks like they're already throwing caution to the wind. Breaking through again in the shortest time possible? Jun Moxie was startled and said thoughtfully, you've just broken through not long ago, so the elemental energy in your meridians hasn't reached the level of overflowing yet, right? Mei Shuiyan rolled her eyes at him and said snappily, this is common sense. Don't you know? Regardless of whether it was a human or a profound beast in human form, as long as they broke through, their origin energy would change forms in their meridians and return to the primary state. Then, they would wait until their meridians were full again before they would make the next breakthrough. You're asking me this even though you already know the answer. You don't know what you're talking about. Since this battle is going to be dangerous and we're not strong enough, I'm afraid we'll be at a disadvantage if we accept the battle rashly. However, this battle is absolutely necessary. We're already riding a tiger and it's hard to get off. Jun Moxie chuckled and took a deep breath. His eyes were unprecedentedly fierce. We've announced to the world in advance that we've come with such an aggressive momentum. If we return in failure, then the Jun family and the Tian Fa forest will become the laughingstock of the entire continent. We might even be consigned to eternal damnation. Haha, the Silver Blizzard City has actually forced me to such a desperate situation. His eyes suddenly became incomparably deep. The unexpected intervention of the 3 Holy Lands this time has really caught us unprepared. I'm afraid that the 3 Holy Lands are planning to do this. Mei Shuiyan said softly, but I didn't think that the 3 Holy Lands would be forced to the point of sending out venerables. Moreover, so many of them at once. I originally thought that sending 1 or 2 venerables to lead the troops would be good enough. It's against the teachings of our ancestors. I didn't think that they would risk the world to get rid of me. Sigh. Although Xiao Tianya's strength has reached the level 3 venerable, he's at most on par with you. Moreover, he's injured, so his strength will definitely be reduced. Du Ju's injuries are not light either. It's already good enough that he's not dead. His combat power is negligible. Hua Fengwen's injuries are light, but he's still a formidable figure. As for Chu Wuqing's injuries, he's about the same as Xiao Tianya's. As for Zhen Sibei and Lu Qiu, they're already dead. Jun Moxie said lightly, these 6 venerables have at most 2.5 venerables left, or even weaker. I believe that they're no threat to us. So, we only need to defend against the Wandering Venerable and the Venerable of Life and Death. That's right. But these 2 are the hardest to defend against. We don't even have the strength to defend against them. Mei Shuiyan took a deep breath. In terms of middle-level strength, we'll definitely win. But in terms of high-level strength, there's a huge gap. Don't be so pessimistic. There's nothing we can't do even if we're trying to save a dead horse. There's always a way out. Jun Imo Xie smiled in an extremely relaxed manner. A look of determination appeared on his face as he said, "Follow me. Shui Yan, I'll show you what a miracle is tonight." As he spoke, he used his movement skills and dashed out. "What are you doing?" Just as Mei Xuyan asked, Jun Moxie was already far away, so she had no choice but to follow him. The two silhouettes seemed to have turned into phantoms as they flitted through the mountains covered in pure white snow. Finally, Jun and Mo Xia stopped in a valley with a thick layer of snow. Swoosh! Mei Xuyan stood beside him and asked, "What are we doing here?" "Look, this place is surrounded by 3 peaks, and the moon is in the sky. This is the place with the densest spiritual energy. Let me lend you a helping hand. I'll help you break through to the 4th level," Jun Moxie said casually. His eyes were filled with madness. What kind of joke is this? Do you think that this is something that can be broken through by eating a pill? Mei Xuyan widened her eyes and scolded him. But before she could finish her sentence, Jun Moxie suddenly stretched out his hands and hugged her tightly. Then, a pair of warm lips kissed her little mouth. She felt her body go limp and was pressed down by Jun Moxie's strong body onto the snowy ground. Mei Xuyan sighed in her heart. So this kid wants to take advantage of me. I don't have much confidence in this battle, so I might as well let him do as he pleases for once. Who knows if everyone will survive this battle? Anyway, even if I have to risk my life, I won't let you get hurt. Mei Xuyan closed her eyes and didn't resist anymore. Just as she was about to accept her lover's tender love, her eyes suddenly widened in shock. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. What came out of Jun Moxie's mouth wasn't the scene that she had imagined. Instead, it was the endless spiritual energy of heaven and earth. And it was the purest form of spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Such pure spiritual energy of heaven and earth flowed out of Jun Moxie's mouth in an unending stream. The density of the spiritual energy almost made Mei Xuyan suffocate. This kind of pure and rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth was something that Mei Xuyan could only dream of. And now, the miracle of her dreams had really appeared in front of her eyes. She slowly opened her eyes and looked at Jun Moxie worriedly. Her eyes were filled with pleading and worry. She was worried that Jun Moxie's output of spiritual energy of heaven and earth would bring harm to himself. But her eyes clearly met and felt the warmth and ease in Jun Moxie's eyes. His eyes clearly conveyed a clear message to her: don't worry, focus on concentrating your qi and quickly circulate your inner breath to transform this spiritual energy into your own. Mei Xuyan finally calmed down. She closed her eyes and circulated the energy in her body. At this moment, she felt that her meridians, which were usually very wide, were now like a dried-up stream. And Jun Moxie's spiritual energy of heaven and earth was like a vast ocean, surging towards her endlessly. Mei Xuyan lay quietly under Jun Moxie's body, allowing the warm and majestic body above her to press against her. She gradually entered into a state of oblivion. This was a method that Jun Moxie had always wanted to use, but did not dare to use. Directly activate the power of the Hongjun Pagoda in his body, activate the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and use his own body as a medium to help others improve. Although it was safer to inject spiritual energy from his palm through Mei Xuyan's wrist, it was not as fast as doing it this way. Furthermore, this was the most direct infusion of spiritual energy. Using his own hand to refine the spiritual energy was too time-consuming. There was not enough time. With Mei Xuyan's foundation, she should be able to handle it. The moment he kissed Mei Xuyan's small mouth, he used all his spiritual energy to attack the Hongjun Pagoda. With a schwa sound, the Hongjun Pagoda once again emitted a 7-colored glow. Then, it rose up in his sea of consciousness, spinning and turning, becoming incomparably huge. The door of the pagoda suddenly opened, and countless spiritual energy of heaven and earth gushed out. In the next moment, Jun Moxie forcibly merged his consciousness with the Hongjun Pagoda, and directly guided this spiritual energy into his mouth. This created a reality. Jun Moxie's mouth was equivalent to the door of the Hongjun Pagoda. The pure, rich, and turbulent spiritual energy of heaven and earth, with the Hongjun Pagoda's close to 60% output rate, endlessly entered Mei Shuyan's body. This rate was a little too terrifying. Even with Mei Shuyan's strong foundation, she might not be able to bear it if she continued to forcefully inject spiritual energy. Therefore, Jun Moxie had been carefully controlling it. The moment he discovered that Mei Shuyan could not bear it, he would immediately stop it. This was the output of 60% of the Hongjun Pagoda's output rate. And this was also the maximum output that Jun Moxie could control at the moment. Normally, when Jun Moxie practiced, he would only replenish the spiritual energy bit by bit as he practiced. He had never been this crazy before. One had to know that his meridians could not bear such a large flow of spiritual energy of heaven and earth. If he did that, his meridians would most likely rupture and shatter, but this time, with such a large output rate, Mei Shuyan was able to bear it head-on. In fact, she did not even show any signs of difficulty. At this moment, Jun Moxie finally experienced the true terror of a venerable. It was indeed as vast as the sea. He had really underestimated the heroes of the world. I must improve. I must improve. Chapter 684. This could be said to be Jun Mo Xie's ultimate killing move. If this move didn't work, then when facing powerful enemies like the Wandering Venerable and the Venerable of Life and Death, the future would be bleak. Or, the only way left was to retreat. Whether it would work or not, Jun Moxie didn't have the slightest confidence. Time passed by quietly. Mei Shuyan could only feel that the meridians in her body were changing rapidly like a raging sea. One moment, it was as cold as ice, and the next moment, it was as hot as fire. A huge amount of heaven and earth spiritual qi was crazily entering her body. After quickly circulating through her meridians, it transformed into the yuan qi that she originally needed to train hard to obtain. The newly obtained yuan qi actually stopped in her meridians abnormally obediently. This transformation process was actually incomparably fast. What Mei Shuyan needed to do now was very simple. She needed to increase the speed of the yuanli in her meridians. Faster, faster. Other than that, she didn't need to worry about anything else. No need to absorb. No need to sense. No need to comprehend. No need to panic, because everything was decided by Jun Moxie. Everything was decided by Jun Moxie. The green jade-colored yuan qi in his meridians gradually increased. From a faintly discernible dry stream, it gradually expanded into a gurgling stream, then transformed into a rapidly flowing stream, and then gradually evolved into a surging river. All of this happened so fast. In the past, it would have taken years, decades, or even hundreds of years of accumulation to achieve this level of power and advancement. But tonight, all of these ideas and traditions were overthrown. The breakthrough of a venerable could actually be achieved so quickly. Continuous improvement, level 3 venerable, early stage, peak of early stage, intermediate stage, accumulation again, breakthrough again, peak of intermediate stage, continue, step into the peak. This crazy speed made Mei Shuyan feel like she was dreaming. With the influx of spiritual energy from the heavens and the earth, Mei Shuyan's meridians actually began to swell up in less than 4 hours. Gradually, they expanded to a horrifying extent, and they were still surging into her body. The meridians that Mei Shuyan carved were like a small reservoir downstream, and above this reservoir was the sea. Now, there was a hole in the sea, and a terrifying amount of water poured down crazily, filling up the small reservoir, but it didn't stop. Suddenly, an inexplicable whirlwind appeared in the sky, swirling countless snowflakes straight up into the sky. With a hong sound, the northern wind started to blow. The wind became stronger and stronger, and the originally bright sky that was filled with stars and the bright moon was suddenly covered with dark clouds. Groups of clouds, with lightning speed, rushed over with a loud bang, gathering from all directions, as if the heavenly soldiers and generals had received an order to gather. Clumps, layers, rolls, and waves of clouds surged and overlapped with each other, rushing to appear and then being covered by other clouds. In the blink of an eye, the clear sky was already covered with dark clouds. Between heaven and earth, it was so dark that one couldn't even see one's own fingers in front of one's face. This kind of stacking speed, even in the summer, was definitely rare. But such a strange phenomenon had appeared in the coldest winter of the year. Only the increasingly violent northern wind whistled mournfully in the sky. The entire mountain forest trembled and groaned under the ravaging wind. Countless thick branches were torn off. A moment ago, they were still flying in the sky, but in the next moment, they were nowhere to be found. The clouds grew thicker and thicker, darker and darker, lower and lower. It was as if they were pressing down with an overwhelming and irresistible force. A heavy, solemn, and desolate atmosphere suddenly filled the world. A faint light inexplicably appeared, that was a small but intense lightning flashing in the clouds, shuttling back and forth, accumulating, preparing. That was the wrath of the thunder god. And it was the power of heaven and earth. The faint muffled sound of thunder came slowly from the 9 heavens, as if it was far above the 33 heavens, but it also seemed to be very close to the ear, or perhaps it was right in the heart. That kind of oppressive to the extreme, could almost drive a person crazy on the spot. This was the snow mountain of the extreme north. It was a place where thunder and lightning had not been seen for tens of thousands of years. Now, at this moment, in this snowy mountain of winter, such an extremely strange thing actually happened. At this moment, somewhere hundreds of miles away, 3 groups of people were speeding towards the snowy mountain, as if they were flying, as fast as lightning, as fast as the wind. But just as the skies suddenly darkened, this group of people suddenly stopped in their tracks, concentrating on sensing the supreme pressure in the world. The faces of the 3 middle-aged men in the lead changed greatly. The power of heaven and earth. The power of wind and lightning. Who is breaking through? Who is breaking through, to actually cause such a powerful change in the world? I never thought that in the extreme north, there would be such a powerful existence. A man with a black beard and a white robe raised his head in shock, looking at the faint lightning in the sky, his expression shocked and solemn. That's right, only a 4th-level venerable or a saint expert breaking through would cause such a phenomenon. Brother Xiaoyao, the strength of this person who is breaking through is probably not to be underestimated. After all, this is the snowy mountain of the extreme north. Another middle-aged man in hemp robes had an ashamed expression on his face. In the depths of winter, and in the snowy mountain of the extreme north, he could actually cause such a powerful lightning tribulation. This kind of strength was enough to make them unable to catch up to him. Another middle-aged man in the lead had a serious expression on his face as he looked at the strange changes in the sky, and said indifferently, "I originally thought that with us personally taking action, the Battle of Blizzard Silver City would be won without any suspense. But I never thought that there would be such a hidden expert here. If this person belongs to the enemy, then, Xiaoyao, I'm afraid we're in for a lot of fun this time. It can't be so coincidental." The man who spoke first had a strong sense of uncertainty in his voice, as well as a hint of fear. He was silent for a moment and then said, "Everyone, let's look in that direction, and be careful not to alarm this person. It would be best if we don't become enemies." The other 2 responded in unison. The 3 groups of people were like 3 sharp arrows, flying in the direction of the lightning in the dark night. Everyone here was experienced, and naturally knew how to look. Inside the Silver Blizzard City, everyone stood outside in a daze, looking at the sky in fear. They couldn't understand what was going on. If someone had said before that there would be a natural phenomenon of lightning striking here, everyone present would have scoffed at it. But now, this originally impossible situation was happening right in front of everyone's eyes. Many people pinched their arms and thighs fiercely, with a dreamy look on their faces. Is this really not a dream? Coincidentally, a group of people arrived at Blizzard Silver City at this delicate moment, and the disciples who were guarding the entrance were knocked unconscious. The leader of the group had a gloomy expression on his face as he floated to the center of the plaza in front of the main hall of the Blizzard Silver City. Where is the leader of the Blizzard Silver City? The 3 Holy Lands are here to help. Why isn't anyone here to welcome us? It was Xiao Tianya and the others. Han Zhanmeng, Xiao Xingyun, and the others heard the news, and hurriedly led the people out to welcome them. Han Zhanmeng's mood was very complicated, but Xiao Xingyun was wild with joy. Especially when he saw that the Xiao family's ancestor was among the people from the Supreme Golden City, he was even more elated. They hurriedly welcomed them. Xiao Tianya snorted coldly and looked at the dark clouds and lightning in the sky with a puzzled expression. He ordered, "Prepare a guest room for us to rest." Only then did Xiao Xingyun and the others realize that the leaders of the group were emitting powerful auras. However, all of them were wounded. "Senior, what's going on?" Xiao Xingyun cautiously asked. "What's wrong? Isn't it because of your bullsh****? Xiao Tianya snorted and looked at Xiao Xingyun with a hint of hatred in his eyes. "We just fought with Jun Moxie's team. The compassionate Venerable Zhen Sibei and the rogue Venerable Lu Qiu are all buried in the snow. Xiao Xingyun, this is all your Xiao family's fault. What else do you want to know?" "Ah." Xiao Xingyun felt like he had been struck by lightning. "Is this true? Don't tell me that the Jun family's strength has reached such a level. There are at least 2,000 level 9 Xian beasts here. You decide how strong they are." The Venerable of the Broken Sword, Hua Fengwen Lengleng, said. Xiao Xingyun cried out in alarm when he heard such a grievous news. He was dumbstruck on the spot. Hua Fengwen ignored him and looked at the strange phenomenon in the sky. "Brother Xiao, this must be a top-notch expert breaking through, right?" Xiao Tianya's face darkened and said, "Yes. There must be a top-notch expert making a breakthrough at this moment. Otherwise, how could such an abnormal situation that defies common sense appear in this extreme north?" Hua Fengwen's face was filled with envy. He stared blankly at the drifting lightning and was lost in thought. "Brother Xiao, do you think this person is the Venerable Mei?" Chu Wuqing asked. "Impossible. Her cultivation base is at most the same as mine, an early-stage third-grade Venerable. She needs at least 300 years of hard work to reach the peak level. How could she break through?" Xiao Tianya snorted and said, "If she really broke through, then I can break through to the level above the Saint Realm." Everyone laughed. They were all experienced and knowledgeable people, and they knew that Xiao Tianya's judgment was extremely reasonable. Immediately, they ordered the people of the Silver City to prepare a secluded room for Du Ju to rest. After that, everyone gathered in the square and looked up at the sky, feeling the majesty of the heavens and earth. When the thunder and lightning appeared in the sky, Mei Shuiyan's eyes finally showed fear. She was not her usual self and started to struggle violently. She knew that she was about to face the biggest test of breaking through. The power of heaven and earth, the power of thunder and lightning. You're tuning into the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.